Hey everybody, welcome to the Level 1 News. Today is April 13th. Today we're doing government and security.
It's Friday the 13th.
Oh, no it's not.
Tuesday the 13th.
It's Tuesday the 13th. Today's Friday when we're recording.
My brain is broken.
Tuesday the 13th is a different villain. He's
yes.
much less effective.
Yeah, less scary.
He mostly just kills people by giving them salty and sweet snacks. So eventually.
That would definitely be my Achilles heel. Would you like some more M&Ms? Oh, no, no, please, no.
And for those of you who are constantly leaving us comments, here's a trigger warning. Bloomberg stories ahead.
We actually had to address it in the Q&A. We recorded the Q&A yesterday. Probably by the time this goes up, it'll be on. But we talked about Bloomberg specifically.
Now, admittedly, I could have found a paywall alternative for this one, but we were all running a little late this week. So
That's fine.
We will talk about the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is active right now. They are not always, but right now they're getting a lot done. They're making big decisions. And this one was one that two certain parties have been waiting on breathlessly. And I think it went in the direction that it should have. Would you not agree?
Yeah.
I mean, there's some nuances to it, I'm sure, but otherwise I think it would be too restrictive for us.
The Supreme Court has ruled in favor of Google in Google versus Oracle on that whole is an API copyrightable pesky business. Although cleverly, you got to hand it up to them. They're clever because a big issue central to the case is API copyrightable? And in their ruling, they expressly said, let us assume that they are, but note that we're not ruling on that. They might not be copyrightable, but let's assume that they are. And even if they are copyrightable, it said that Google's nature and scope of the copying was such that Oracle doesn't have a leg to stand on.
A lot of money at risk there. And this is the final. A lot of times when you see these stories, it's like, oh, the appeals court has decided. That's not the end of it. This is the end of it.
Yeah.
It's over.
I bet Larry Ellison. Well, the thing that's going to happen with Java now is Oracle is going to abandon it. Since it's not a source of money from litigation, they're not going to care anymore. Or they're going to change it to make it horrible. If you'd like precedent for that, see also Hudson versus Jenkins. Jenkins is wonderful and amazing. Hudson is a steaming pile of crap now.
Do you think there was cake in the Google conference room?
Yes. I think that all
Congrats
of Google
on
got
the court rules.
they got the day off. Like
No,
they just got it.
they wouldn't go that far.
No, they did. They randomly got a day off. The Googlers did like a week ago. It was just it's just like, okay, we're gonna take today off. Good luck, everybody. Mental health day, whatever.
Well, the U.S. government has also been doing some work. And it's weird because we thought we might see a little bit of a reversal in this trend with the incoming administration. But so far, nope. They've been doing pretty much the same thing.
The U.S. adds Chinese supercomputing entities to the economic blacklist. These are the creatively named like Hong Kong Center for Supercomputing, Shaoxin's Center for Supercomputing,
Tianjin Fidium Information Technology, of course.
Of course.
Who else?
Listening to you guys try to pronounce this is just wonderful. And I'm sure we'll get corrections.
Oh, yes.
So this blocks even American companies from even doing business with them, giving them parts and stuff like that. But it doesn't affect whatever's in the air before this took effect.
Yeah.
How many orders do you think went in?
Or in process. Like,
Yeah.
well, let's just backdate those orders real quick. There we go. I don't know how much of a problem this really is because the component shortage is real. Like, you can't even get basic stuff anymore. It's like, I'd like some ceramic capacitors. No.
And those components, for the most part, I don't think coming from here.
No, yeah.
They're already there.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of a dumb fight to pick, right? Because if they did it to us, it'd be way worse.
Yeah.
Although it's already happening without their input. The FTC has weighed in on some more of the antitrust rulings. This is nothing that, this doesn't have any weight in terms of law. They are just strongly suggesting.
The FTC urges courts not to dismiss the Facebook antitrust case. The FTC blasts the anti-competitive actions to neutralize, hinder, or deter competitors. One of the big things in here is when Instagram was just 13 people, Instagram or Facebook bought them for $1 billion.
And WhatsApp.
And stuff like that.
And a bunch of other ones. Those were just the big ones.
A bunch of the emails in Discovery were literally Mark Zuckerberg saying, We see a lot of data from users leaving to Instagram, and we like what Instagram has. Eventually, they will compete with us. We should just buy them. It's like, oh, that's not something you should put in email. It turns out that's a little anti-competitive.
A little anti-competitive.
Just a little.
Just a touch.
Smidge. This is a great picture of the Zuck.
I don't know. I don't think it really captures him. He looks kind of sleep deprived, and I don't know.
What is this feeling I'm feeling? It is anger, sir.
That hairline's creeping back. I know that feel. Some other things that the U.S. government has been worried about lately, and for those people who think that the government is kind of in bed with the big tech companies, this isn't going to make you feel any better.
Nope.
Because they're kind of going to bat for them. Now, this is also money that would presumably trickle into our shared coffers. Although, when you look at the actual numbers, maybe not so much.
The U.S. forges ahead on $1 billion tariff plan over digital taxes. So the U.S. is planning to levy tariffs on companies that are charging tax on digital transactions. So if you want to import an Austrian piano, you're not going to be able to do that because Austria charges taxes on digital goods.
And a lot of countries are planning this. So this would mostly hurt the consumer, especially if you like weird foreign stuff.
Yep.
It's going to go up by 25-30%. And I don't think that the companies will eat that cost.
Yeah. Video cards from China are still got a 25% premium, and people are still buying them like crazy, although they're salty about it.
Yeah. Well. The another thing Congress has weighed in on has to do with, of course, foreign spying. And when we talk about foreign spying, we're not talking about, like spooks on the ground type of stuff or satellite surveillance anymore. Sure, we do that, but more importantly, it's gone into the digital world. And you have to think about all the different vectors that can get to China, and there's so many.
Congress says foreign intel services could abuse ad networks for spying. To me, this is a tacit admission that our own foreign intel services have already been abusing the ad networks for spying.
We're positive this could happen. How do you know? What?
Don't worry about it.
Who? Let's talk about China. So yeah, they're saying that this is the bid stream, like the whole Google thing where they do, and the act of bidding and seeing the results of those bids could be used by a foreign entity to learn things.
Just because it doesn't run their ad doesn't mean they didn't get data out of it, in other words.
And they believe that some of these people are stockpiling that data and then trying to marry the information they get there to the actual profile. At that point, they've got you.
Remember the Facebook ads where they were targeting like one or two people specifically? It's like, I want to see if I can advertise to this specific person, and you could totally do that. It's like that.
And if you're a high-level executive in a publicly traded company, I'm going to give you a huge PR piece of advice for 2021. And it's real easy, but you won't follow it because you love money too much. But you should, because it's easy PR. Don't do business with ICE. People will immediately find out, and they won't like it.
LexisNexis to provide giant database of personal information to ICE. I read through this, it seemed like all the standard stuff, but wait a minute. It turns out LexisNexis has access to that database of license plate scanning, is what it looks like, because the license plate scan data was named as one of the things that they're interested in.
But it's worse than that, because LexisNexis, they scrape everything to do with legality, and you can't opt out of any of that.
It's public record.
If I were to sue Wendell, both of our information would go into a court case. LexisNexis would have that, and they could sell it. And that's a lot of information.
Yeah.
And you can't just say no, or else you're going to lose the case.
Yeah, even if it doesn't make it all the way to the case, just starting an action, even if it goes to arbitration or whatever, there's a little bit of a record left in that in LexisNexis. You could find out a lot of interesting stuff.
And it turns out you can buy it if you're with the right organization. This is an interesting story, and this comes down to the whole Uber thing. And those people are supposed to be independent contractors, although now in California they're not, and in certain parts of Europe they're not. So it's a weird Schrodinger's contractor kind of situation going on there. But the question is, if the Uber driver does something as an independent contractor, is the company liable for that? And we kind of have our answer here.
Uber ordered to pay $1.1 million to blind passenger who was denied rides 14 times. Although there was a lot of evidence that came out in this that did not paint Uber in a good light. I think a large part of the ruling was not because of the drivers, an independent contractor, but specifically because Uber coached the drivers on how to try to decline the ride in a way that doesn't run afoul of the ADA laws.
The thing at odds here was, can the dog come in the car? Now, by law, a dog is basically a human.
Yeah.
And you have to let it. But the coaching that they uncovered was that they told the Uber drivers, you can't discount them because of the dog, but you could find 100 other reasons. And here's a list that you can choose from.
Wow.
Kind
of like when a cop can't arrest you for what they're mad about. There's so many other things.
It seems like you're resisting arrest. You're arresting me but why? Why are you resisting arrest? I don't understand.
And I was so excited about this story because, you know, all the Bloomberg haters. And it's like, oh, this is a story not on Bloomberg, but about them. And they have not actually accused the Bloomberg writer of anything, but it seems a little fishy, don't you think?
Yeah.
An insider trading indictment shows ties to Bloomberg News scoops. So it's the feds are making a case against this guy, saying that he used his position at Bloomberg News to execute
it's
trades.
a different guy.
Oh,
he
had information from someone at Bloomberg.
So they tracked his trades, and then they checked the timestamps of his trades against the Bloomberg articles, and they were like 5 minutes ahead every time. And this guy was a contributor on every article. He didn't write every article, but there was no article that was used for this that he didn't contribute to.
Interesting.
So it's pretty good circumstantial evidence. And these were mergers and acquisitions, so it certainly seems like this guy found out about 5 minutes ahead of time and traded heavily and made a lot of money.
It's just like that one time that the Chicago Board of Trade executed all those trades because they superluminally knew about the crop futures that were coming in New York.
What about those times that a bunch of people made trades based on those buildings falling down?
Huh. They knew a little ahead of time.
Ugh.
Looks weird.
How would they know that?
That one guy had two insurance policies that were both $1 billion that paid out separately. How crazy is that?
That had just been purchased.
Yeah. That's so strange.
Well, the Supreme Court doesn't just offer rulings. Sometimes they give opinions, and they write these opinions, and they carry a lot of weight because we care about these people for whatever reason. And this one is something that a lot of tech people have been screaming for a long time.
Justice Thomas argues for making Facebook, Twitter, and Google utilities. Not a great take. Justice Thomas definitely doesn't understand technology, but perhaps the underpinning messaging technology does make sense as a utility, or perhaps this is an argument for, an open standard. Jack Dorsey of Twitter has often argued for that. Hey, if we had a messaging platform that would let you take your tweets and awfulness and go to another platform wholesale, we would support that.
So this is all about... the big thing that he cited was Trump, of course. So if we argue that it is a public utility, then they couldn't have gotten rid of Trump. But also Trump would have lost his bid to be able to block people. Remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
Because are you not allowed the same access as everybody else? It's like if they're just turning your water off. So it's not quite the same. I mean, water is a little more important to the life than Twitter.
Yeah, social media.
But even I would agree with that, and that's really saying something.
And you might not even choose water every time. But there is an argument that, like, more and more, social media is a requirement just for going about your daily life.
Just to have that human connection.
No, just to, like,
or things like Marketplace or, get hold of a business, find out their hours, get a menu for a restaurant.
Imagine you're banned from Twitter, and then you get your Google account gets trashed.
Oh, the Google account being trashed is like that's like a death sentence.
But the only way to deal with the Google account being trashed is if you have enough Twitter followers and you tweet at Google.
Yeah.
But if you're banned from Twitter,
it's over.
Huh? Is that like having your electricity turned off?
I still don't think so, but maybe.
It's an interesting argument. I'm glad I don't have to make that decision.
Yeah, same.
Amazon is, could you say they're in the fight of their life right now?
With the unionization?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not just in the U.S. They're overseas. They're having some union issues as well. And
although one of our other stories in business reveals a little bit about Mr. Jeff Bezos' strategy for dealing with this, and I got to say, it's brilliant.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that later. But it's a clear cause and effect.
Yeah.
But one thing we've learned about Amazon that I don't think anybody would question, except for the Amazon PR team, is that they're willing to go pretty low to fight the unions. They're willing to get in the gutter, get a little dirty, bite, scratch, fish hook, whatever they got to do. And sometimes they might cross the line.
Amazon illegally fired activist workers, the labor board finds. So there were 2 people inside Amazon, and they were doing everything within the rules, and Amazon was like, what are you doing? Are you not happy? Like, no, I'm perfectly happy here. It's like, oh, it seems like you're really just causing a lot of trouble. We got to fire you. Wait, what? It turns out that's illegal.
Take your piss bottles and leave.
There was actually 3 of them. There were the 2 women, and then there was another guy.
Oh, yeah.
And they're all doing the same thing. They were trying to call attention to the whole unionization and workplace safety. And
one of them was a really high up executive.
Yeah. These weren't warehouse workers at all. So kind of like the Google thing.
Yeah.
It's harder to ignore this.
Yeah, the one high up executive, I read some of the stuff that she wrote, and it was like, we're always working on making these things better at Amazon. I'm making a list. We've done these things right. So, I mean, it didn't seem like she was super adversarial, but at the same time, she didn't seem like she was actually campaigning for worker rights.
I think the Amazon threshold for adversarial is different than yours.
Yeah.
It's a little more sensitive. Right to repair is a big thing right now. There's that whole grassroots lobbying effort that what's his name is doing. I don't think that's going to get much traction, but we can hope. However, when we look at this headline, perhaps that hope will be extinguished because there was no reason for this. This was clearly not the will of the people after the hearing that they had.
Colorado denied its citizens the right to repair after riveting testimony. So there was lots of amazing stuff in there. One of the things was like, well, if unlicensed people repair your wheelchair, it'll catch on fire. And somebody testified, licensed people repaired my wheelchair and it caught on fire anyway.
Well, one of the guys too mentioned, he was like, I needed my wheelchair fixed, and it took him 2 months to get it. And he's like, it was just something that could have been done at home, but I would have voided the warranty.
Yeah, and he had to have the wheelchair to go about all of his life. He was basically just stuck at home until he could get that done. And the argument that they gave against it when they voted against it was that we just don't have enough information, and I don't feel like our questions were properly answered by this hearing. But here's the kicker. They didn't really ask any questions.
Yeah.
They did not. And it's not. They didn't say no, but they tabled it indefinitely.
Yeah.
So we really need the right to repair farm equipment and everything else, and documentation on that. This was also an 11-page bill, which wasn't really super hard to read, and they said it was overly broad. And it's like, it's pretty plain language.
But what we really need is someone in power to express the idea that we don't need the right to repair. That is not a right that a government organization has the power to grant. This is the opposite. This is oppression. We should not be oppressed when trying to repair our devices. So we need to change the language here.
One of the politicians in this was actually quoted as saying, Apple should get to dictate how you use their device after the sale. Oh, what's that sound?
Krista, what is that?
Someone just gunning their truck up the road. Sorry.
Wow.
I
thought you weren't even that close to the road.
I'm not that close to the road, and usually it's pretty quiet, but this guy has decided he just wants to gun it, I guess.
What a cool guy.
Yeah. But he has a massive,
What you were saying something.
Oh yeah, one of the politicians said something about Apple. Apple should have the right to choose how people use their devices after the sale. And it's like, did you not? Do you know nothing of history? The first sale doctrine, when book publishing was getting popular, book publishers were like, when you open this book, you agree not to resell it or sell it used or loan it to anybody. And that was before computers.
That's such a stupid argument.
Yeah.
The other thing they mentioned in this article is someone was like, this is awful for the planet too, because what happens is that instead of being able to repair stuff, people just end up buying new all the time. And then we just generate more trash. And they're like, whatever. That's someone else's problem.
And there's also, I think, the argument, if you boil down the argument from the other side, it is, if you don't like their terms, don't buy their product. And could we not just turn that argument completely around and change the subjects and say, if they don't like me doing what I want with it, don't sell it to me? Same argument, same stupidity. Shopify had a little bit of a data breach. And this is one of those data breaches that, like, it was kind of a hack, but not really. But it resulted in the same thing. And one man has been discovered being responsible.
U.S. charges California man over Shopify data breach. How did he breach the data? He paid the people in the Philippines that were running Shopify's customer support in cryptocurrency and other bribes in order to get access to Shopify customers' back end. That's it.
And he appeared to be doing this. There was no direct monetization, right? He was using this for competitive data or something. So I guess he was in some position to really benefit from that. More than, was it like $800 he was paying them?
Yeah.
Per thing? But he got caught.
It was effective.
A while back, we had the big controversy and the adpocalypse and then the other adpocalypse. And it's all based around protecting the kids. If I say some sort of foul word or even a dictionary of other words that I'm not even sure what that list is, it's not acceptable to the kids and we must be punished for it. And so even that didn't work and YouTube decided to try something new. It's not good.
The BBC has the article on YouTube kids being a vapid wasteland, according to U.S. lawmakers. Why did the BBC article turn out to be one of the better articles on this? No one else covered this.
That's a common thing.
Yeah.
BBC, for all their faults. Well, it's kind of like, I've talked about this before. If you want to know what the left wing is doing wrong, you watch Fox News or OAN or one of those other things. If you want to know what the right wing is doing wrong, you watch CNN and MSNBC and all that. But you have to watch both and only take the negatives because everything else is a lie. And I think BBC is really good at reporting our news reliably. By that same token. But they pointed out that almost all the videos they reviewed were just unashamed product placement.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Kids are probably the most susceptible to that kind of thing.
That was basically Transformers in the 80s, though.
I wanted those Masters Universe action figures so bad. And some of the more rare ones were almost impossible to find here in good old Kentucky. They didn't ship a lot of them out.
They didn't think that anybody would possibly buy such a terrible, crappy toy. How wrong they were.
Those mountain folk are never going to want a glow-in-the-dark Skeletor, but I wanted it.
That's true with the kids' YouTube thing, though. Like, there are whole channels that are dedicated just to, like, buy this, like, sparkly silly putty, and then they'll do, like, a review of the toy.
Yeah,
it's like a whole influencer network just for kids, which is bizarre.
That was exactly what they were talking about, and the majority of the videos were apparently that. Was it like 1 in 5 was actual educational material?
Yeah.
I mean, telling you about a toy is technically education, but I think they were looking more about core.
Remember, kids, it's only slightly radioactive.
Do the math. See how many weeks do you have to save your allowance to be able to buy this toy?
And how many microsieverts? That's like a reading problem for math. After 4 years of playing with the putty, little Timmy will have this amount of radiation. How many bananas would little Timmy have to eat to equal 1 week of silicon?
19 bananas a day. The answer was 19.2 bananas a day.
Australia and China, they kind of got this like little frenemy thing going on because China loves Australia's coal. And I think a lot of Chinese people like to vacation there and stuff like that. But at the same time, that's a Western democracy. And they're not crazy about that.
Australian minister's phone hacked as report reveals a Hong Kong link. I was all excited that, so there's like political intrigue here, but the more I read it, the more I think that maybe there's not political intrigue, because one of the things that they did was try to do, they tried to impersonate the prime minister or something, somebody that is politically related to this particular minister, to get them to send money to them, which was, of course, a fake money, like it was a fake account.
But worse than that, and probably the real reason for it, they messaged as that guy to a contact that they found in his phone that the Chinese probably knew who that was, and said, hey, do you have any contacts in the Uyghur population? And the person who got that message, assuming it was the guy, was like, oh, yes, we do. Here's the list. And I wouldn't want to be one of those people right now.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate.
Things are not great in Hong Kong right now.
He got fished, I think. When are we going to... You know what we should do is... And of course, they would be the ones that would have to pass the law. But we need a law of minimum tech savvy for politicians. Because Clarence Thomas would fail it, I guarantee you. And so would Biden.
Yeah.
I think all of them would. I don't think there's any that are really tech savvy.
Bernie could probably pass 3/4 of it.
You think so? I mean, he's really old.
Yeah, he is very old. I mean, I like Bernie, but he's very old.
There have been a couple of things that made me think that he's reasonably computer literate, but maybe not.
This is where we're going to get angry comments from those old people in the audience. It's like, I'm old and I know about technology. I hope I'm one of those people.
AOC would be the most technically competent, and I don't know what that says about our future.
Did you see, of course, you know, I mean, they were just slandering her, but it's the truth. When it comes to passing laws, getting legislation adopted and then passed, she is dead last of all the lawmakers. She accomplished nothing. Some great photo ops, though. Can't argue with
not willing to compromise.
I don't know if it's that or if she's just out doing other stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I don't understand why you have to cbc.ca. Why do you have to shorten Saskatchewan here?
Probably because it takes up too much space when it's like in an aggregate.
There's plenty.
List.
Look at that second line, Krista. There's plenty of space.
I'm saying like when it's on another website though, and you want to have that teaser link. They want to make sure it's not just taken up with the name of the territory.
That's such a fun name to say, though.
It is.
So, what is ultimately going to come eventually, and it's going to be a little bit of cold water on companies like Tesla, is that not only are all those incentive programs going to run out, governments are going to get tired of not getting their piece of the pie. That's exactly what's happened here.
Sask government to roll out $150 annual tax for passenger electric vehicles. You put a tax on gasoline, you use that tax for road maintenance. What happens if your cars don't use gasoline anymore? Well, you're going to have to pay a lot more in taxes to offset that loss of income from gasoline.
So $150 a year. What do you think you pay an average on the gasoline tax? Probably more than that, right?
Yeah, I would think that it would be more. I mean, it's in the tens of cents per gallon here.
And gas is a lot more expensive in Canada.
Yeah.
There's
I'm
another
not
one.
mad about this. Yeah, there he goes. It's a different. I think it's a different trick. I wouldn't be mad about this. I mean, you know, you want to use the road, pay the tax.
We should put a little camera out there on your porch, Krista, and, you know, like make a little script that triggers on certain audio cues, and then we can do a website of loudest trucks at Krista's house.
I got to watch
Shame
a cat
on.
kill a bird in my front yard yesterday.
Oh, so excited.
Rue was really excited about that.
The cat probably didn't even care. It was like, all right, the toy is dead. Move on to the next one.
It ran off with it. I don't know where it went, but
They don't always eat them. They just love to kill. We had another big cyber attack last week, and I don't think at this point we have still not found out exactly how they got in, but of course everybody's expecting it was the exchange hack.
Yep.
Because that keeps
There's hints
paying
about
off.
that in there.
But high-level targets for sure.
European institutions were targeted in cyber attack last week. Like, this headline made me think, uh-oh, the cyber war is escalating, things are happening. No, this is just straight up unpatched exchange. And I've got news for you. If that was your biggest issue, or if that was the thing that you made the headlines over, they were already in. The Chinese and the Russians were like playing poker games over your compromised server long before the exchange hack hit.
They kept changing Boolean variables in different files to play tic-tac-toe. That's how bad it was. They
And you didn't even know until somebody else. That was the North Koreans that got in through exchange. They ruined everybody's fun.
This one's a little out of order because this is the government story. We'll have more about exactly what happened here, but this has to do with the regulators. And here's a question. What is the statute of limitation on a data breach? We've never explored that, have we?
The European Union's about to.
And can you be punished for it more than once if it resurfaces and causes damages a second time? These are questions that are going to have to be answered.
Facebook leak. Irish regulator probes quote-unquote old data dump. So this is the data. This is the 500 million phone numbers that we were talking about last week, and I think the week before. It was originally for sale on the dark web years ago. Well, now it's completely free. You can anybody can download it. In fact, it was, the Have I Been Pwned guy has updated that to also be, has your phone number been pwned? So it'll take an email address or a phone number now, which is pretty kick-ass. You should check that out.
So the Irish regulators are saying, hey, this caused damage. But Facebook is saying, dude, that was a year ago. Actually, almost 2 years ago at this point.
We already settled this with the EU?
Yeah. Lose our phone number is what they're saying. And I don't know if that's going to work out for them. Hopefully it doesn't, because that was ridiculous. And this was also Facebook is saying this was not a hack. This was terms of service violation from the API partners.
Neat.
Totally different. We know that anti-piracy at this point is almost completely automated. No one ever looks to see if these are real or not. They just shotgun blast, shut it all down with DMCA, and you get things like this.
This one was real. This is not the one you're thinking of.
Oh, you're right. I was thinking of the...
Yeah, that's in business.
Yeah.
Sky wins injunction to stop Reddit moderator from pirated TV shows. So, Sky TV, they were just... There's a guy on Reddit who was probably pirating and then posting links.
Probably? I mean, look at this.
It totally was.
He had a Patreon.
Yeah.
And the goal listed on the Patreon was to pirate stuff on Reddit. Not a smart man.
That's not okay.
So
they were able to track him down just by figuring out that he used to be a Sky subscriber.
Now, when you say that, and I'm certainly in agreement in most cases that copying is not stealing, but when you monetize the copies,
when you have a Patreon,
that's
maybe
too
it's
far.
time.
China, we've been talking about this for a long time, but it has finally happened. They've done it, and they're the first to do it.
This is from the Wall Street Journal. China creates its own digital currency, a first for their economy. So this is sort of the mainstream news. This is not really covering a lot that we haven't covered in the past, except that it's much more widespread now. Remember from like January, I think, we were talking about how it gave everybody in China, or everybody like the early adopters, like $20 to $30 in this currency, and it could be spent at like the local 7-Eleven because it would be processed through the normal payment processor. And how also China was really nervous about other electronic or cryptocurrency based payments like the IOUpay or the Jack Ma Ant group. Got to make him sort of go away because he's competing. So with him eliminated, it's time to move forward with the China digital currency thing. And I'm surprised that the Wall Street Journal didn't talk more about the whole Jack Ma, let's make him disappear aspect. They mentioned it a little, but not
I'm
really.
Surprised by that.
So,
yeah. So they're doing it, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that. And of course, that is, they're not even making any secrets about it. It's about control and tracking.
yeah,
Yeah.
They want to be in charge of all transactions in the country.
not Jack Ma.
Yeah. And if you're LinkedIn right now, you got to feel like one of the luckiest companies in the universe, because how fortuitous for you that almost the exact same headline is running for a way more famous company right now. You're totally going to fly this under the radar because it is literally almost the exact same story.
Hackers scraped data from 500 million. Is he going to say Facebook users? No, it's LinkedIn users. About 2/3 of the platform's user base, and they have been posted online for sale. So while the Facebook 500 million is completely free now, anybody can download it. It's no longer locked up behind a paywall on the dark web. LinkedIn, that one's still behind a paywall.
But what is your prediction? How long will it remain behind a paywall?
Not very long.
It took Facebook a year,
Yeah.
right? So I'd say less. I'd say that horizon begins to lessen with everyone.
If you've been following this program for a long time, you already deleted your LinkedIn account because we've told you repeatedly they're horrible.
I was going to say, who has a LinkedIn account? But in this economy where people are desperate for jobs, I bet a lot of people still do.
I've resisted it, but I feel like if I ever need to look for another job, it's really going to bite me in the ass.
Yeah.
It'd
It's
be
a good
fun.
way to
And so-
get your name out, unfortunately.
No.
I'm going to keep resisting it. But,
yeah,
you know,
I mean, I
there's-
don't need it now, but
there's the specter of it out there. Sometimes I get those like invite emails from people who tried to add me on there, you
Yeah.
know, where it spams you. And I feel bad about just ignoring them. But at the same time, come on. They should feel bad, but they don't understand that. And this one is certainly nothing new. I mean, we've known about this forever, and we know that it's bad, but no one ever says it's really all that bad. And most of the companies do it. But the EU, I guess, is getting bored.
Ars Technica reports that Google is illegally tracking Android users according to a new complaint. This outlines how it's using their advertising ID. And yeah, I think that if the argument put forth in the lawsuit is sound under EU law, it's a pretty solid looking case, because it literally, that's how it works. Like, that's how it was designed. Like, what they describe as being the problem is literally how it's built.
Well, one big thing the Biden administration is doing is they are, following the whole climate legislation type of stuff, and they're going to cut the fleet capacity for exhaust. I got to go back to these stupid four-cylinder modes.
They're going to go all electric. I thought all new purchases must be electric.
That's for the capital.
Oh, okay.
But this is for the commercial fleets.
Oh, okay.
Like the stuff they're selling us, your whole fleet has to be under a certain mile per gallon. So for every decent car you make, you're going to make a trash car, or maybe several trash cars. And we don't really do it here because, Kentucky's real red and we don't care about that kind of thing. But in a lot of places, like California is famous for, you got to go and get your car inspected, and your exhaust has to pass. And if it doesn't pass, you can't drive. But what if you can't get it tested because there is nobody to test it?
Georgia emission system shut down after cyberware attack. Pretty sure that they meant ransomware?
Oh, yeah, cyberware.
yeah.
Have they been playing too much Cyberpunk 2077? Oh, they got a ping. Oh.
There's a guy with the gorilla arms upgrade just tearing that place apart. So, yeah, people have been trying to, you get that little, I imagine you get a card in the mail and they say, hey, you got to come in. It's your time. And they try to set it up and sorry, nothing's working.
They are giving people a waiver at least, but that's still more headache and bureaucracy than is tolerable.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awful.
Emissions is $25. You can imagine the revenue loss. We have employees that are out of work.
And they did 100 a day. 100 a day at 25 a copy. And now that's all just gone. So, yeah, that's a lot of money on the table. Encrypted messaging is getting hotter and hotter, and everybody wants it, but you have to be very careful to investigate if your encrypted messaging app is actually doing what they claim to do. But you also have to be careful about doing that.
Polish blogger sued after revealing security issue in encrypted messenger. So he found an issue and he said, look at this thing, look at how it works. And then they changed how the application worked and said, no, that's false. That's not how it works at all.
So it was when you were doing a certain thing, I think you were inviting people, it used a non-secure URL, autofwd.com, no certificate, and by going through that, it would allow you to, that site could be SQL injected to catch the outgoing invitations. So it was basically wide open if you knew what you're doing. This company said, we never did that, quietly changed the code, according to this researcher, and is now suing him for ever suggesting that they did. But the company that they were using for the actual encryption, UseCrypt, admitted that they didn't have any actual encryption, and they've gone out of business.
Let's see how that lawsuit works out for him. That's what happens when a megalomaniac gets in charge of a project.
If we have any Polish viewers, how likely is this to do anything in your courts? I don't know what Polish court is like.
Is it possible that it would get thrown out as completely frivolous? Because that'd be nice.
And also, this is one of those cases where how likely is the judge to understand any of this?
Yeah.
Are Polish judges basically like our judges? because the
Almost
chances are
certainly.
probably not good. This is a terrifying idea. One thing about it, one of the most terrifying things when you work in this business is an error that you can never explain. And these are a lot of errors that you can never explain.
Yeah.
Also, this movie writes itself. Hit me up on a consulting fee. I will write this movie for you.
Cosmic rays causing 30,000 network malfunctions in Japan each year. So this is NTT. It's like, this is just, why is the computer erroring randomly? It turns out there's nothing wrong with it. It just got hit by a high energy particle, or a communication line got hit by a high energy particle, and then there was, something got flipped or changed or whatever.
And it turns out these are tiny, 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 tiny little reactions. It's like oxygen and something else that it reacts with. Nitrogen. But the smaller we get our transistors, the more susceptible they are to this.
Yep. That's why a lot of the space stuff, a lot of the new stuff on Mars, which we'll talk about later, has really old lithographies because the transistors are enormous and slightly more hardened for radiation as a result.
What if this hit a Bitcoin transaction?
I think the network would reject it.
Hopefully. But the movie is obviously, this starts to escalate. We start getting more and more of these.
Yeah.
And there's one guy working in like a radio telescope somewhere in the middle of nowhere by himself, and he knows about it. He understands it. That's, of course, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And then he has to try to get to the president. But on his way to the president, he keeps getting brushed aside because more and more terrible things are happening.
I thought you were going to go with like the AT&T censoring algorithm, which we'll talk about later. Has like gone completely crazy, and its bits are getting flipped, and it's just censoring all sorts of random things now, and we're just like, okay, the computer says that's bad now, I guess we'll just roll with it.
Or the vaccine passport, and you get thrown in a FEMA camp. And along those lines, boy, should you be terrified by this. Now, the good news is this is not functional yet, but how quick are all of the law enforcement agencies going to just pour money into
for this?
Immediately.
They love it.
It's going to be immediate. Scientists show how you can collect DNA from the air. They were able to, pull some DNA out of the air, basically, and figure out that somebody had been in a room because of remnants they left behind.
So they had some mole rats, favorite of many video game enemies. And they had these mole rats, and they just had them in a room, and they tested from 5 to, 20 minutes of exposure and collected them. And they did get a lot of human DNA floating around in there, but they could definitely say this specific mole rat was hanging out in this room.
What happens if you borrow somebody's jacket and then ruffle it while you're in the room and then leave because, a lot of dust, like a lot of dust in your house and dust especially in your bedroom and around your bed, that's just dead skin cells. And it's easy to imagine that some of those would be airborne.
Or not even borrow somebody's, because that would have a tie to you. Go to a restaurant during the winter. On your way out, just grab a jacket, random jacket.
And then later, ruffle
Shake
that.
it.
At the crime scene.
You see people like walking up to older people and scraping them a little bit. Let me just get a little bit of this.
I've noticed that older people tend to be sloughing off cells at an alarming rate.
GitHub has a little bit of a problem, and it has to do with their GitHub Actions, their automation that they'll let you set up. And we talked about this problem before, and it was like, well, this is a theoretical problem. We don't know that anybody's ever used it yet, but now perhaps someone has been using it all along.
GitHub investigating crypto mining campaign abusing its server infrastructure. So this is why we can't have nice things. Somebody automated some actions that would run with like the maximum CPU allowed or the maximum timeout. And their job is not testing their program, but it's actually mining cryptocurrency. That's not very nice.
Pretty brilliant. But you don't want that if you're GitHub.
If you can arrest that guy for bribing the tech support in another country, that also ought to be the same level of a crime.
But it's going to be harder to pin it on one person, don't you think?
Yeah.
We'll see. This is a terrifying tale, and I don't like his argument, but at the same time, he is right. They have been doggedly telling him this since its inception. That's kind of what they base the whole existence of it around. And it's their big argument in the court cases.
Yeah, over-under on this being immediately incorporated into the Epic lawsuit.
Oh yeah.
You're saying that as if it's in the future, but this was done. When did this come out? This was on the 30th.
End of March, yeah.
They've already got like 5 different versions of this drafted.
He believed that the Apple App Store was safe. Then a fake app stole his life savings in Bitcoin.
$660,000.
So he had a Trezor hardware wallet, and he was looking for the Trezor companion app in the App Store. Well, there was a fake app in the App Store that would steal stuff.
And they point out that it's pretty common to get these apps confirmed as one thing and then transition them to something else. And that seems to be what was done here. So the walled garden. And he figured out they spend an average of 20 minutes vetting an app. Maybe not enough time.
Sometimes they said less than that. Sometimes they were approved within a minute.
So, terrifying. $660,000.
Whew.
And he was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
He had like one of those really secure
Hardware tokens.
Oh, it's tough.
I trusted Apple. And it's like, I like his comments on Apple because, like, once you peel back the thin veneer to actually dig into what Apple is doing, it's really hard to support them. And it makes, like, all the whole, like, oh, we're high and mighty on the advertising side of thing all the more egregious because you look at their actions in other things and you see that they are just as deviant as all other companies. And it somehow makes them worse because they take the position, you know, the white knight position. But in actuality, they're really terrible.
But at the same time, I've told a lot of people, and I've stopped doing it because you get a really negative social reaction from it, about what they're doing with an Apple device. And they're like, come on. It's, and I think that's...
Isn't that a little paranoid?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of probably the idea that this guy had.
Yeah.
And boy, does he regret it. Unfortunate. Although, do we owe... Could you not be expected to figure out that a company is lying to you before you do business with them? I mean, that is a burden that individuals should have to carry.
Yeah, to an extent.
This one, I hate to do just tweets as stories, but I couldn't find anybody
There's
covering
literally
this.
nothing.
And why not? Because this is blatant hypocrisy. Blatant.
Yesterday, the ACLU updated their privacy statement to finally disclose that they share constituent information with service providers like Facebook for targeted advertising, flying in the face of the org's public advocacy statements.
How many times has the ACLU sued Facebook?
Yeah.
Oh, but we need to advertise to people that would be interested in that. This is a long Twitter thread, and honestly, I don't know what to make of it. But it's something that I'm going to be watching over the next few weeks.
Well, it's how can you not say that this is just pure, doing one thing and saying another?
It sure looks that way.
It's notable that they published this on April 1st as well. So when they get the backlash, they'll be like, oh, it was a joke.
I don't think it's a joke. We do have, in business, we have several instances of bad April Fool's jokes. This would be one of them, but I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either.
Yeah, I
true.
don't think it is either. But
what was our runtime for this epic episode? Because we were it felt a little rushed.
it's like 45 minutes.
48.
Okay, we didn't do too bad. We'll see you tomorrow with more business.
Tomorrow's going to be a lot of stories.
Tomorrow's going to be
So,
long. Yeah.
If you want a long news session, Wednesday session will be massive.
All right. We'll see you guys then. Loud truck goodbye. Bye. Hey, everybody. Today is April 14th, and today we're doing all business. There's literally nothing in here but business, and it's going to be a really long section at that. Like, really long.
And Bloomberg trigger warning for the first story.
Yeah.
You're going to see that nasty paywall. I know, it's terrible. But this is about the big Reddit stock activism. You don't hear much about that anymore.
Yeah.
I think they are still active. There's a core group that's still doing stuff, but they don't have headlines about it. It's not exciting anymore. And it seems like the time horizon for when the magic spell starts to wear off might be right about now.
Reddit fueled penny stock insanity is scaling back as of this point. I didn't get the headline exactly right, but no, they're not talking about GameStop. That's what I thought when I first read the headline. But they're talking about some Australian like media, social something.
It was some company that I don't know why they picked it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it was a pay later app.
Oh.
So you can, it's called IOUpay. So you can buy something and pay with the app, and then you pay them back.
I get the feeling this story was written by Bloomberg because of the whole GameStop thing, and they really wanted it to be about GameStop, but this is the best they could find.
Yeah, I don't know. So that went up 6,400%, but they paint a very dire picture on the actual financial health of this company, because there's another competitor with a way better product that just launched it.
Sounds like normal penny stock stuff to me.
Well, that is kind of the Wild West, but there was definitely some help from Reddit. So I hope you're not hodling IOUpay. Bad time for that. We got some more chips to talk about that probably aren't going to be for sale, but this is data center stuff, so maybe it won't be quite as effective. And 10 nanometers. Hey, they finally did it, right? Good job.
Intel has launched 3rd gen Xeon Scalable 10 nanometer Ice Lake SP to supercharged data centers. There's some really interesting stuff here. There's not that many of these processors are actually 10 nanometer. Some of them are Cooper Lake, so still 14 nanometer. Well, these are chips for, they are up to 40 cores, so there's that. And I tried to price one of these systems at Dell, and Dell was just like, no, this is not going to happen until like May. So,
but they did lower the prices versus the last generation.
Yes.
But are the retailers?
Is anybody going to be able to buy them?
Yeah.
I don't know. I really want to get my hands on one or two to play with in a server. The TDP has gone up as well. This is it's like they should have saved a ton of power on the smaller lithography, and yet it needs more power.
So yeah, it's hard to get excited about chips right now. This one, you got to take this headline in with considering all the other stuff that happened around this week. All of the bad press Amazon is getting, and there is a lot of it, and it's mostly about the unions. And if you were looking down all those barrels and saying to yourself, I have got to improve our image, what could I do? This could be what you could do.
Jeff Bezos comes out in support of increased corporate taxes. But when you dig into this, it's insane. And it's also brilliant, but it's also insane. You know how during this global situation that we find ourselves in, a lot of small businesses have gone under? He wants to see the tax set up such that those small businesses could never, ever come back. Only Amazon could handle a corporate tax in the way that he wants to handle the corporate tax.
And I think this sentence boils down to what he's trying to accomplish here. It's not that he wants to be taxed corporately. It's that he wants a seat at the table when it's decided.
We recognize this investment will require concessions from all sides, both on the... What?
Why do we have to take concessions for you, Mr. Bezos?
Yeah.
Why do you need concessions?
Both the specifics of what's included as well as how it gets paid for. So this is a move that will cement Jeff Bezos as the conglomero of our generation. You will never be able to get, Aunt Irma's baked goods that you used to love and enjoy. Ain't happening. It's all Amazon Bakery and Whole Foods now. They're not coming back.
And you just alluded to this, one of those headlines that is so nasty this week that he needs to try and sweeten a little bit by saying something like that has to do with all the businesses that he's destroyed over the years. These are the ghosts coming back to haunt him.
Amazon is the target of small business antitrust campaign. The National Coalition of Small Businesses to push for more forceful antitrust measures is saying that Amazon competes unfairly. So the story about the camera bag or the tripods or anything that we have covered in the past, all of those small businesses all have a similar story about Amazon muscling them out. It's like, well, at first I was selling my stuff on Amazon, and then Amazon was selling something really similar to my stuff that they had made in China really cheap, and then I lost all my business, and now I'm out of business. And there's a lot of those people in this coalition. A lot.
And this is kind of the Icarus story for big tech, don't you think?
Yeah.
Because once you cross a certain size, people start to gang up against you. not only other businesses, but also your workers. And they're going to have a bad time. Unless they can defeat it, which up in the air at this point.
They could control it if they control the government. He who controls the spice.
They're working on it.
I mean, it's kind of like that with the Amazon toilet paper. It wasn't the spice. It was literally just mail delivery toilet paper. Because you're going to get it locally? No. I've made sure that the local companies have no toilet paper.
So, yeah, that's... we'll see. I think Amazon will easily weather this, but it's going to hurt their profits.
only in the short term. In the long term, it's going to cement their position as a fixture of the American household.
What do you think that it'll sort of consume itself? It'll splinter because of the various people after he dies, or will that be able to hang on?
No, I think that it'll only become even more insidious and dark. Like it'll be like the Amazon, like, you know, we have Capitol Hill. It'll be like Amazon Prime Capitol Hill.
I guess if we had to look to the past for like Sam Walton,
yeah,
pretty much that's what happened with him. Yeah. If you are one of the people who, I mean, we have bad internet around here, so we definitely feel that. But if you're one of the people who only has a wireless hotspot to work from, I feel your pain. And not just because of the terrible latency and service that you're experiencing and the high prices, but also the house fires.
Verizon recalls 2.5 million hotspot devices due to fire hazard. They were, they call them quote-unquote jet packs made by Franklin Wireless, sold between April 2007 and March 2017 and March 2021. Turns out they had a lithium-ion battery pack in them. It would keep them overcharged. Lithium-ion battery packs don't like to be constantly overcharged. They can't wait to catch on fire.
So the fix was to prevent charging while in use, which has to be super annoying.
Yeah.
Because when would you not want your wireless hotspot to be active when you're at home charging it? Makes sense. Christy, I don't believe that you've told us you got gigabit now, right?
No, we're not bad, but we're better than what we were, but we don't have full.
Oh, I thought you had fiber.
I don't think so. No. We did speed tests. We're not getting we're getting good speeds, better than what we did, but
so you're still on cable then?
Yeah.
Oh man, I thought you told us that you had fiber at the new house.
I thought we did, but our speed tests don't quite live up to that. But they're still really good. So I certainly stream better here than I did at my old apartment. So, which is weird considering where I am, which is like the middle of nowhere.
Well, Texas, the news cycle, and maybe most of the country has forgotten what happened in Texas, that horrible, horrible episode they had with the ice. But the regulators have not forgotten about it, and they are trying to make some laws that are going to fix it. And I don't know much about power regulation and the grid and stuff like that, I'll admit, but at the first glance, this doesn't sound like the solution to me.
Mm-mm.
Amazon warns Texas, don't pass a bill that would drive up the wind power costs. So, yeah, the whole power grid failure in Texas, it got a little political. But it turns out that Amazon has invested a lot of money, and they get subsidies, like federal subsidies and some other stuff. So if Texas messes with what Amazon is doing for renewables, it messes with their carbon credits, it messes with their federal tax credits, it messes with a lot of things. And so Amazon has said, don't do that, we'll leave.
And it does seem like what they were trying to pass kind of caters to the fossil fuel stuff.
Oh, it's Texas, absolutely it does.
How delightfully dysfunctional.
I have learned in all of this, one thing I've definitely learned about the whole power grid system is how difficult it is to balance it.
Yeah.
I was not aware of that.
Oh, yeah. I was reading more about that based on comments from, was it the last video?
I don't remember. But
because we were like, how is it this bad in Australia? And it was like, it's still a symptom of Australia's own making. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, that's
they
where
did it to themselves.
Where they were charging it.
Yeah.
Because they can't have an imbalance on either side.
Yeah.
But it seems like batteries could fix that.
Like Elon Musk was like, let's deploy a whole bunch of power walls. And I hate to be like Elon Musk is the savior, but he totally did exactly that in Australia. And it was fine. That was on the Gold Coast, I think. They need to do that everywhere.
It's like these Texas lawmakers have never played RimWorld. Because an eclipse or a heat wave, it's going to mess with your power strategy.
You've got to have multiple forms of power.
Yeah. And you got to store them in batteries. This is a great headline. And they were very careful on how they explained this. And basically, it can make sense if you really twist your mind around it, but come on. This was just a blatant lie.
Amazon finally acknowledges delivery driver bathroom problem. They tried to frame it in that all delivery drivers or anybody who works in a vehicle has a problem with bathrooms because most businesses don't allow drivers to use the restroom and blah, blah, blah.
But specifically, the guy that tweeted, his excuse was, oh, I thought we were only talking about warehouse workers, not the drivers, which there are way more of, right?
We definitely have done stories about the warehouse workers having pee bottles.
Oh, yeah, I think it was a lie either way you look at it. But that was his excuse.
It's like, I have to stand in my square and pick a certain number of packages per hour, and it's an impossibly high number.
He also blamed traffic and rural settings and not the impossible delivery expectations. Those are not part of it.
There used to be random outhouses along rural roads, but that has since not a thing anymore.
Amazon has the money. They should just sponsor rural rest stops that double as package pickup centers. And you could give them a kiosk and they could Amazon shop there. That's what you do. And then meth heads move in.
Yeah, I was gonna say, then they strip it for copper. And
We can't have nice things.
Amazon then also employs their own Judge Dredd at every location, and it's like, oh, I think you're breaking in. I'm authorized to use deadly force.
If you recall, was it Ireland where they sank that data center?
I can't remember.
that sounds right.
It was Microsoft, but they yeah.
It was a European country, maybe it was Scotland or Ireland or one of those places. And they said, you know what? We're just going to put an entire data center. We're going to seal it up, watertight. We're going to dump it in the river. And that'll keep it cool. And everybody said, wow, that sounds kind of crazy. But it turns out it worked beautifully. Almost none of the hardware failed while it was down there. And they apparently learned a lot from it. Now, they're not doing that, but they're doing something even more impressive.
Microsoft is now submerging servers into liquid baths. They described it as a giant bathtub. They're using a fluid that boils at about 50 degrees C, and it'll condense and turn back into a fluid. But this doesn't require any kind of mechanical circulation. Just the fact that it's heating up and cooling off is fine.
Well, it's like it condenses into steam, and then that cools it. It drops down as rain. It's raining in the server center. That's hilarious, and that is all the cooling that it needs. That's incredible. How much do you think
cool
that fluid
pictures in
costs
here, too.
per liter?
It always shows up with like Computex and trade shows and stuff. It's like $100 a gallon.
What do you lose with every cycle?
I think
Is
if
it
you
perfectly sealed?
if you can seal it, it's good forever.
That's cool.
That's neat.
Interesting stuff. Also, what a great way to freak somebody out. It's like, oh, I'm throwing you in the boiling oil. I'm like, oh no. And then they get in, it's like, oh, this is just uncomfortably warm. I don't actually know the conversion. What is 50C?
It'd be a little over 100 degrees.
Yeah. That's just a nice little hot tub.
Like a bath, yeah.
Although the guy that was handling the server was wearing gloves, I don't know.
Well, it's probably a little caustic. Yeah. Probably
Yeah.
not something you want on your skin. But for one prank, that'd be fine.
It's a prank, bro.
This is a headline that, we don't need to keep covering it, but it's not getting any better. That's the thing to keep in mind.
GM slows production in some plants due to semiconductor chip shortage.
Still can't get them. Unfortunate.
To an extent, this is the automotive industry's own fault, but that's fine.
How many things that are bad about the automotive industry at this point could you not say that about?
That is true.
But I have gone on record of saying that I am not interested in an electric car at all. Zero interest. But I gotta say, I kind of want an electric Silverado. The truck is pure utility for me. And I think an electric version would be way better.
GM is building an electric Chevy Silverado with a 400-mile range. The electric pickup battle is just beginning. The article doesn't say if that's empty or loaded. That's 400 miles of range. Empty is much less impressive.
And that's also the very top tier model.
Yeah.
The entry level isn't going to get anywhere near that.
Yeah.
But if you gave me 200, I'd still be fine with it. Because I'm not making long trips in my truck.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Trips to the hardware store.
Chrissy, you are in the market for a truck. You should get an electric Silverado.
We'll probably maybe buy one maybe next year, or maybe like end of this year. But I had to load dirt and hay into my little tiny car the other day, and it was fine. It was fine, but a truck would have been better.
Did you just line the trunk with something?
No, I just let it all
Just
go
went in
there.
raw?
No, I mean they were packaged. Like there's plastic around the dirt, but it would have been better probably. I also had like blueberry plants in there.
Well, if you are excited about the electric vehicle industry, one of those cars one of the choices that has come up, for some insane reason, they decided to make the Mustang a crossover, hideous monstrosity and make it electric. Well, why use that name again? But you can get them. However, you might want to wait and adopt this a little later.
Bad software is turning some Mustang Mach-Es into electric bricks. Now, they say they fixed it in February, so, if you buy one now, theoretically the dealer has fixed it. But it turns out it's got a traditional lead-acid battery because they just retrofit. And it also has, like, the lithium polymer battery. And the lithium polymer battery will like, sip charge the lead-acid battery, except when it's on charge. And so, the global situation that we're in now, these have been sitting in people's garages. The lead-acid battery goes dead, then the thing won't start, and there's nothing you can do.
And it is manufacturer recommendation to always keep it plugged in.
Yeah.
Which is exactly the thing that kills the little battery.
Oops.
This kills the battery.
Of course, as we learned with the Verizon story, you don't want to do the opposite. Yeah. Dear God, don't do the opposite.
See also those Tesla stories where when you wreck a Tesla bad enough that it shreds the battery, the battery shrapnel that spreads everywhere cannot be put out. It has to just burn until it runs out of fuel.
And they're basically just little shotgun slugs that are on fire. Really, really hot fire.
That set everything else on fire. Things that you wouldn't think would burn eventually will burn.
It's like the Dragon's Breath incendiary shotgun shells. Tesla famously built their giant factory in China and then started to maybe brush up against the Chinese government a little bit. They weren't completely excited about all the things that Tesla did. And it seems like that might be playing out once again in Germany.
Tesla is on a collision course with Germany's biggest union. That's IG Metall, the people that are working on the YouTuber union. Neither side is likely to back down, according to Business Insider.
So Tesla, it turns out, they opened up this plant. Now, it is not compulsory to be a part of this union if you make cars in Germany, but no other car company is accepted from it. They all negotiate with this union. And Tesla just didn't return their phone calls. So
Neat.
It's a question of, can this union let this precedent be set? And of course they cannot. So they point out they can try and do strikes, they can try to do slowdowns, they can try to do work stoppages. There's a lot of nasty things they can do that I'm sure we'll be hearing Elon Musk tweet about in the near future.
I just want to provide jobs. Also, the people need to work 12 hours a day and not have the same protections as other workers in that industry.
Also,
but I'm just providing jobs.
Also, my friend Jeff says you'll be totally fine peeing in a bottle.
We're going to give them the nicest bottles. We're going to give them like a little bottle holster to
It's
strap
going to be
on,
embroidered with Tesla on the side.
like a drop leg pouch. And we're going to have every Monday, the first person to fill their bottle all the way up wins a $50 gift card. You talked about this last week as your favorite April Fool's joke. I don't know why it's your favorite. Is it just your favorite because it was so terrible?
Yes, it was so poorly
It's
executed.
kind of a dad joke, yeah.
This is what happens when you let a marketing agency run amok.
And also, having marketing people without any sort of filter in front of them speaking to the public is kind of like Elon Musk without a filter in front of him speaking to the public. And it results in the same kind of problems.
Volkswagen could end up in hot water over its Volkswagen marketing stunt. See, Volkswagen electric vehicle, because they didn't run that by shareholders. Being a publicly traded company, there's certain rules you have to follow. If you change direction of the company or something dramatic happens, you have to run that by shareholders because that could affect the shareholders' interest in your company.
And you certainly can't publicly lie about it, which an April Fool's joke, by definition, a public lie. So I don't think they'll hit them too hard for that.
Probably not.
But hopefully it's a cautionary.
I think this was definitely it was a PR stunt. It was always a PR stunt, but they were secretly like, well, if everybody really likes it, we could do it.
Oh, you think there was a possibility that it wasn't fake?
Yeah.
Wow.
There was I think they were testing the waters just to see what the reaction would be. And then if it went really well, they were like, yeah. Because Volkswagen is pretty brilliant. I mean, I have to give them that. That's clever. It's a pun. I like it. But also, really, I mean, after about an hour, it's worn off.
But if the marketing team comes to you and they say, we don't know, they might like it, and then this happens, doesn't that tell you need a new marketing team?
Yes.
Well, Krista, you've been experimenting with buying in bulk now that you're a homeowner. How's that going?
Well, I mean, we've been doing that since last year. I like buying in bulk, personally.
You can save a lot of money doing that. You can certainly find savings opportunities, but there's some things you should never buy in bulk.
Yes.
And I think this is certainly an illustration of that.
Best Buy's new beta program promises concierge tech support for $200 a year.
I'm not really seeing the value add here when I read this article.
That is unlimited tech support. There's going to be a certain part of the population who are going to hit this like every 2 weeks or every week.
I think all the elderly should sign up for this because they're just lonely.
Yeah, and they're going to be showing up, and the people are going to be like, I don't know, it seems fine now. And it's like, oh, can you just look again?
Yeah.
I made you these brownies.
Yeah, which is good. It's good for them. It's good for Best Buy if they can make money doing that.
It's not good for the people doing the work because they're probably expected to do so many a day.
That should be a service. Someone should make an app for that. That's like, well, I think we did a story about that in the nonsense section a long time ago, where someone was like, "I'll pay me to be your friend." Like, they should do that, but for old people.
Oh, that was the Japanese thing.
Yeah.
Is there a guaranteed to be G-rated Omegle for old people?
No. How would you guarantee it?
I don't know.
That'd be hard.
But that's what we need.
Now, this story, I got to say, did you not get an overwhelming feeling that this was just an advertisement?
I thought it was, yeah.
I mean, they are just blatantly affiliate linking and doing their best. And the story doesn't back up buying this product. Buying this product won't help you. So CNET is really, I don't know what they're doing here.
Broadband use surged more than 30% during pandemic, industry group says. Maybe it's time to buy a mesh router. This Asus lovely router. Yes, go, mesh router, home internet.
Consume.
And they'll link you right to it.
Now, your internet connection might suck, but this will give you the most suck you can possibly get for... So is this really like... What?
I was reading an ad.
What this shows us, and this chart perfectly illustrates, is that broadband use just shot off the scale. And the thing to remember here is that nothing broke.
Yeah, they didn't need to charge us money for overages.
Easily absorbed all of this extra capacity, and we were fine. I mean, look at that.
It's kind of like a water company being like, well, the population of this city has doubled, but we haven't increased the water supply. Oh my gosh, there's a water shortage. And it's like, imagine that, but except that the water is imaginary and exists everywhere.
So, yeah, that's...
An air shortage.
That article points out a lot of disappointing things about our world.
It really does.
Yeah.
But you know what's not disappointing? The Asus mesh router. It will fill the void in your soul. Don't stare into the abyss anymore. Call today.
I guess if that mesh router had good quality of service, maybe it could help you a little bit if you have multiple people in your household. But it ain't going to fix your broadband.
Can it fix your existential dread, though?
I doubt it.
It is a pretty purple color.
It does look cool.
Yeah.
So Starlink. Starlink is the hope of many people, like those people who have those Verizon hotspots burning their houses down. If only they'd had Starlink. And so maybe they'll run out and get it.
How crazy is it that satellite space-based internet is better than local 5G?
That's crazy, yeah. But one thing about it is it seems like SpaceX is kind of hanging on to that egalitarian thing. You aren't going to get special treatment. You get in line like everybody else, you get the same package as everybody else.
SpaceX president says Starlink doesn't plan to offer tiered pricing. until a couple of years from now when they don't have enough satellites for the demand, and then they're like, okay, yeah, for the people that are working from home, you can pay more and get more.
But that, unlike broadband, this is a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
If you tier up, you're taking away from somebody else.
Yeah.
Which would only motivate people to buy the higher tier more.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful business model if they go for it.
They will. Don't worry.
Yeah,
It might take
give
a couple
time.
of years, but they will.
Uber has certainly had a weird couple of years with the whole pandemic thing that affected their business model. And they've tried to do certain things to get over it, like many companies have. But like many of those companies, we're kind of getting to a point where they're like, yeah, we can't keep this up forever. Or we could, but it would hurt our profits. And we really like our profits.
Reuters reports that Uber is dangling higher pay to lure U.S. drivers back, but warns that it will not last. So in that business model where it's like, you're a contractor, but we're not going to make any commitments to you. Just do this one job for us. We promise it won't be like last time. And then 3 jobs in, it's like last time and worse.
So
Their entire business model depends on squeezing the driver. So, I mean, come on.
And some of the ways that they kind of responded to the driver complaints when all this first started is they're like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We are now going to be totally transparent with how far you have to drive this person, where you're taking them, and how much they're going to pay you. So this way, everything is known up front. You don't have to worry about where you're going, a bad neighborhood or whatever. We're going to give you more control. But like the other thing, that isn't going to last forever.
Uber may stop letting drivers see destinations and name prices. Once again, Uber's business model is fundamentally broken. Uber could be a good thing if it charged, like, its profit margin per ride should be on the order of like $2 or $3, because that's all it costs to run the app and the app infrastructure and the appropriate insurance policies.
Yeah, they could, but I don't think what you're not taking into account there, and I think this is a real cost, is them trying to expand it and get more people to use it and fight Lyft and all that stuff and fight the legislation.
Mostly fight the legislation.
Yeah. So they do have more cost, but I would say there's definitely a middle ground between what you're describing and what they're doing. They would still make plenty of money and people would be happier. That would also destroy the competition or force them to adopt the same.
Which would be a capitalistic move.
Because all the drivers would
Yeah.
flock to one.
If you can't set your own like prices or anything or destinations, doesn't that mean you're not really like a contractor at that point?
Ding, 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 ding.
Well, but
Yeah.
you get the option to take them or not, is their argument. But it's just a black box if they change that back. So you don't know.
Yeah, that sounds like bullshit.
I actually tried to see if Uber operated around here. During the day, it doesn't. But their recommendation is like, oh, we'll just start the job anyway, and then it'll create a surge, and then maybe somebody will show up. But you just have to find out. So,
I thought there was a ride sharing thing for our town.
There is. It's
Yeah.
not Uber.
Oh, okay.
oh, do we have a local one?
Mm-hmm.
Because I say all the college kids I think used one of them for the bar crawls.
Good Lord, we've got a lot of stories left.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Well, the Google AI division has been a source of a lot of drama. They've lost the Gabru, and then I don't remember the other woman's name.
And some other people.
And when they were asked why, it was pretty damning what they said. And so now they had somebody in charge of that, and then somebody else took over being in charge of it because of all that. And now
Sammy Bengio is the latest name. Hopefully I got your name right. To leave the Google AI unit. So he's resigned. There's not any real drama around his resignation, but you got to figure that, Google executives were looking at this like, please, is there anything we can do to keep you here? And he's just like, no, I'm out.
I'm out.
the morale in the AI division has to be low.
It has to be low. Not just pandemic low, but like really low.
Bitcoin is it's chugging along up there in the 50,000s, but it's certainly not rising meteorically like it has in the recent past. And people are, starting to say, "Oh, is it over? Is it going to go up again?" And a lot of people are weighing in, but one man is weighing in with a completely new take on Bitcoin.
Peter Thiel, he's blaming China. Peter Thiel is blaming China. He's still real. Now, it's funny because he's been, so pro cryptocurrency and all this other kind of stuff, but he's saying this is a Chinese exploit to our economy.
Now he's talking about the reserve currency, which of course is the dollar, and like 70% of transactions. I think the Japan and Germany are 2 and 3, way down the list, and Bitcoin steps aside and bypasses all of that.
Yeah.
And what does that mean for our American exceptionalism? I'm sure there'll be some good comments about that. And this headline certainly illustrates what he's talking about, because why would China have an advantage with Bitcoin? Well, maybe because a lot of the Bitcoin is being mined in China.
Bitcoin mining emissions in China will hit 130 million tons by 2024. NVIDIA's first shipment of $30 million of CMX mining cards from Hong Kong to China were also confiscated because China was like, we don't want this. Weird.
Do you think the red lights are functional or just visual?
They're there to give you that Matrix vibe that you feel like a little uncomfortable when you look at it.
Yeah, probably Matrix 5.
For a business that is all about using as little electricity as possible.
It's funny that was mentioned in the Microsoft server article. They said that a lot of miners were using that liquid immersion technology for cooling because it required less energy than spinning fans, and so that was a cost savings.
Also, probably doesn't heat your building up.
Yeah, that's bad. Yeah.
I wonder if you could just circulate the water of, let's say, an apartment building. I know that liquid is non-conductive, but it seems like you could figure out a way
To just heat a building, yeah.
or the water or whatever, irradiate it.
Just warm it slightly.
Actually, weren't there companies that did that years ago?
Yeah.
Like they built those little houses. I don't think that
You
would
could
work
probably
anymore.
do like underfloor heating with that, right?
I think that's what they did.
Yeah.
But now it's too hard to do just one miner and actually get anything from it. Well, Bitcoin is volatile for sure. And one of the things that a lot of traders like to look for is arbitrage. You're going to buy it in one place, sell it in another, get a nice little spread. However, if you read this headline and you, like Wendell did, have dreams of taking advantage of it,
It's a little harder.
They pour cold water on that right away.
Bitcoin is trading near 66,000 in South Korea as the Kimchi Premium returns. The reason that this exists is because South Koreans have Korean won, and not a lot of exchanges take won. So you can get it over there, but then you have to take won and then convert the won back into dollars, which is the tricky part.
Well, a non-citizen cannot.
Hmm.
You cannot register with their exchanges. And vice versa, I think, is also true. It'd be very difficult for you to get spend the dollars, get the Bitcoin, and then get it back into Korea.
15%.
Yeah, that's a lot of money if you could figure it out. I wonder how much the Korean version of the SEC would come down on that. How quickly?
It would be bad. It would be brutal.
Well, the NFT bubble. Is anybody arguing that it's not a bubble? I mean, these prices we are seeing are insane. And is it sustainable? I kind of hope not. I don't know. I mean, the world's crazy. It could be, but I hope it's not.
The NFT bubble might be bursting already, according to CNN Business. They've got some anecdotal evidence here. The novelty has worn off.
So they report some of the highest sellers are down as much as 70%. All these big headlines about NFTs are crazy. A lot of those people probably have a lot of buyer's remorse right about now.
Yeah.
I came up with an idea, and it's controversial. And I can't take advantage of it, but some of you can, and you should, and I expect a fee when you do, because you will make so much money on this, an obscene amount of money. And I'm going to give you 3 words. Are you ready? Racism, indulgence, NFT.
Oh, yeah, the Pope issues those.
It's like, oh, what is this tweet from 2016? Don't worry. Let me just pull up the blockchain here. I paid for that.
I know that was wrong. Here's my penance.
Yeah, exactly. T-Mobile has made some big changes lately. They've changed their business model. They're trying to do different stuff. And I feel like they're trying to catch the bandwagon of municipal broadband.
Maybe.
Don't you think?
Possibly.
Because the way they named this.
T-Mobile launches home internet service and and a small town initiative as part of the Uncarrier move. So this is a small town that has 5G. I think T-Mobile's just looking at the population in this area and saying, we've got like 3 towers here and the population is 5. How are we going to recoup our money? Oh, I know. Let's do this. Because this totally is not going to work in a city. It's not going to work in anything except the most rural areas. And even then, it's still garbage to your internet.
Yeah. And it's still probably one of the last choices you want to go with.
Yeah.
It's just the only thing left.
Unless you live under the tower.
Huh.
In which case, good luck with the lupus.
I don't know if there's any evidence of that. We all know that Apple and Epic hate each other and that they are going to go to war, but that is a war that's going to play out over a long amount of time, most likely. But this is kind of like, one of those old school war, like Waterloo, where you can sort of see them just lining up on either side of the field. It's like, oh, it's coming. And we're starting to see how they're going to strategize. We don't know exactly yet, but it's playing out.
Another Bloomberg article, Apple and Epic have unveiled their lines of attack in this big lawsuit. So Apple is going to say basically it's 30% is a standard fee. Everything is above board. We vet our applications, although Epic's got some new evidence against that. And Epic is going to argue that the Apple devices are just glorified computers and people ought to be able to run whatever program they want without interference.
Apple is also pointing out the App Store APIs and all of the different things that they have for the walled garden. They claim that is a benefit to Epic because they use Apple's technology to reach customers.
It's a little speculous, I think.
Yeah.
But then you would also have to make the same argument about Google, right?
Yeah.
And Steam and everybody. The Epic Game Store. They've got their own thing. They finally added a back button to that. I can't believe we went almost a year and that didn't have a back button.
I hate the notifications on the Epic App Store.
It is annoying.
I turn it off.
But they do give you those free games.
Yeah.
Microsoft is the subject of a lawsuit, and usually when you hear that, you think, yeah, they're probably in the wrong. But in this case, I don't know. I mean, these guys had a business model that depended on another business. Never a good idea. Although they were completely in legal territory doing it.
Value Licensing has slapped Microsoft with a £270 million lawsuit for influencing the second-hand software market. So what was happening in the EU, if you sell a piece of software, it's your right to resell it again later. And what would happen was companies that had bought software or were going under or were upgrading were legally entitled to sell their old software. And that's what Value Licensing does. But now with Office 365, where everybody's moving to a subscription service instead of paying for software outright, certain versions of software still had a 10-year agreement for support. So like Office 2019, for example, originally had a 10-year guarantee for support and licenses and patches and stuff like that. But Microsoft has said, well, if you forego that and you switch to Office 365, we'll give you some pretty big discounts. So instead of selling their software license on a secondary market, they just give it back to Microsoft. Well, Microsoft doesn't do anything with it. It's disposed of because Microsoft doesn't see their software as a tangible good in that way.
Well, there's nothing to dispose of. It's not a tangible good anymore.
So
it's a key.
There you go.
I don't think they're going to win that one.
Seems unlikely, but maybe.
Now, when we were in school, do you remember someone in the computer science department at some point, I'm sure told you because they told me and they told everybody, if you want a guaranteed job coming out of here, might not be exciting, might not pay you a lot of money, but oh boy, if you learn this, you will have a job. COBOL.
COBOL, yeah.
Because almost nobody knows it anymore, and we're still using it.
Yeah.
And that was 20 years ago?
Yep.
Well, guess what? We're still using it. But the good news is, if you want to learn about it and actually try it out, it's easier than ever.
IBM creates a COBOL compiler for Linux on x86. The most amazing thing about this that was not mentioned in the article, there's also a plugin for Visual Studio Code now for COBOL. That's pretty good.
Man, if you're coming from modern programming languages, that's going to be a shock for you.
Yeah.
But, like we say, if you're desperate for a job, have you been seeing all the headlines that apparently there's a massive worker shortage in the U.S. right now?
Yeah.
I don't understand that at all. I thought we were all desperate for jobs.
It depends on the job.
Yeah, if you're not getting paid a living wage, it's like, well, this won't even help me.
Well, if you are excited to get back out there, do things with other human beings, I don't understand it. But people seem to enjoy it. And I guess this news is good, but if you scratch it just a little bit under the surface, this is the terrifying thing that we were assured was never going to happen, no matter how bad things got.
NBA aims for full arenas for 2021-2022 with increased testing and vaccines. So what the NBA aims to do, apparently, is to put a company in charge of keeping an eye on whether or not you're vaccinated and testing you on the spot and sending you away. That doesn't seem dark at all. And that definitely seemed like the NBA managing, those are technically medical records. The NBA managing those medical records, that seems reasonable.
Now, I'm sure this company they're talking about, or the NBA, or the arena, or whoever, is not going to try and keep that data.
Forever and ever and ever, and it's not going to leak like the LinkedIn data or the Facebook data.
It says the teams aren't required to use the program, but I bet most will.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think it comes down to the arenas more than the teams, because the arenas are the ones who have to enact all of this. So
I think most of the fans look, Michael Jordan requires a pint of your blood before you enter the arena. They'll be like, you know what? I'm an anemic, but sign me up. It's fine.
How crazy do you
man.
think these games are going to be?
Well, they also
people are
point
going to
out,
be getting rowdy, right?
Well, they point out that they might do sectioned seating, and you would have socially distanced
Instead of smoking and non-smoking is vax.
Yeah. But the vax section could be maskless, and they could just go as wild as they want. But the anti-vax section would have to be quiet and wear their masks and distance. I think unless you can't fill up the arena, you just start eliminating anti-vax seating, right? Because you lose money on it.
Yeah.
How many couches are going to get burnt once that all starts up again?
Well, they do that when they're happy. I don't know if they do that when they're angry.
I'm not saying because they're angry. I'm just saying woohoo! I've been cooped up in my house for a year.
Yeah. There will
I'm
be
really going to get crazy this time.
A lot of pent-up couch burning, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Do you burn 3 couches in one night, or do you space that out over the course of a month?
Just burn one cushion a night. Really, get your full life out of that couch before you.
Got to maximize the toxic pollutants to the atmosphere.
Yeah.
You don't want to be wasteful during the chip shortage. You don't know if the couches are even being made at this point.
Can you recycle a couch into some of the missing circuits? That would be funny.
A smart couch. Signal has become one of the very popular messaging apps because people have lost faith in a lot of other ones. However, a lot of the Signal supporters didn't care for this announcement. I think they're trying to figure out how to monetize it, and a lot of people don't like this.
Signal is testing a payments feature that lets you send cryptocurrency to friends. Only if you're in the UK, and it only supports one type of coin at this point, but it is an interesting pilot nonetheless.
It seems to be really, really important to a lot of people to send money to other people through their phones.
Yeah. Or just send money from, one person to another. I get that.
You know what we should do? We should come up with some system where we have physical markers for money that we can just exchange. Seems like that would solve that. I know that we're really beating this horse, and it's not dead yet. It lives. It's not moving, but it is living. And it seems like maybe we now know the date of when it will actually be decided.
This headline is the results of Debian vote on Stallman to be known by the 17th of April. That's literally all you need to know. Moving on to the next story.
And we actually also talked about this, but the last time we talked about it, it was they're probably going to do this.
Yeah.
Well, they did it.
Yeah. LG will shut down smartphone business in July to focus on smart home and robotics. Abandoning a lucrative thing for a speculative market. Okay.
But I think that's the terrifying thing about it. I don't think it's that speculative. I think the smart home stuff is so in demand, and that's terrifying.
The smart home stuff is in demand until somebody buys it, realizes that it's a scam, and then they never buy anything again.
Even my older relatives are into that kind of thing. Like, my aunt and uncle have like the whole camera set up and things like that, and the Alexa, and they're like, "Oh, we love it." I'm like, "It's spying on you. Take it out of your house."
Not only that, but it's going to break in like a year or two.
Yeah.
I've been trying to figure out a solution for my parents to enjoy streaming music, but they just can't deal with the interface.
Like Spotify, yeah.
Especially on a phone. And I actually, for a while there, I was like, should I just get them an Alexa? I mean, what do they have to hide at this point? Just let them enjoy the music.
You don't want to know what they've got to hide.
Well, I'll never have to know. Only Jeff Bezos has to know. The Mandalorian. You ever watch The Mandalorian?
I never did.
I thought it was a decent show for what it was. You know, I mean, it was a fun little romp and adventure. But it was the most popular show of 2020 and also the most pirated. And because of that, you can imagine the Disney algorithms are working overtime. And as usual, they overreach.
Film company targets Torrent Freak article over the Mandalorian piracy. We literally reported on this last week. And the story that we reported on last week was picked up by the algorithm. And it's like, oh, they're pirating it here because they're talking about it. They weren't.
So there it is. That is the article that we read last week and told you about. And when Disney saw that, they said, torrent is in the URL and Mandalorian?
86 it.
Gotta go. And as usual, Torrent Freak has not been able to reach anybody on the phone. It's all automated. You can't stop it.
Well, they mentioned it's not Disney who actually issued the takedown request. It's some other company.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Disney's totally fine with that.
But they also can't get in touch with that company.
Yeah.
GFM and Torrent Freak couldn't figure out who GFM was. So I'm sure it's just a doing business as subsidiary of actual Disney. They probably just don't want to pay those employees the full benefit package.
Yeah.
Deliveroo. We don't have Deliveroo here, right?
No, I don't think so.
Is that a Europe thing? I'm pretty sure Europe only. They did something phenomenally stupid. And you could argue that Volkswagen got some decent press.
It's an hilarious stupid.
And
yeah,
it made you think about Volkswagen, right? You took a look at that car and it was like, oh yeah, they got electric cars now. So maybe there was some good press there in amongst all the bad press. Can you see any positives from this?
No, this is awful.
Deliveroo's April Fool's joke backfires in France. What was their April Fool's joke? Everybody got an email that said, oh, your Deliveroo 450-pound order is going through, which is a lot. It's a lot of food. So people were freaking out, trying to decline payment, turn the app off. They say it was just an April Fool's joke.
This would have made me very upset.
Really, really bad idea.
Yeah.
These marketing agencies, man, what are they doing? They're trying to get the headline.
Yeah.
And they did.
I mean, we're talking about it.
They miscalculated this one. Yeah, we're talking about it, but on the whole, doesn't that make you way less likely to ever think about using Deliveroo?
Yeah, because it's like, oh, what else are they using my data for?
Yep.
What other horrible April Fool's joke will they play on me?
Do you think they actually put those stickers on pizza? They did. The Prime Video one looks like it's curved perfectly.
I mean, that could just be a good... Maybe it's just a really great stock photo.
Engagement challenge. Is this actual stickers or is this just really good? But ISPs, now that we're through the pandemic, like we've talked about so many times before, all of the little concessions they made to us to give us more bandwidth and let us have a little bit more, drink a little bit more from that faucet, they are now ripping back. And they have some really hilarious reasons as to why.
Ars Technica ISP imposes data cap and explains to its users with a condescending pizza analogy. Wow, if you have that ISP, my condolences, tells users that exceeding the data cap is like taking an extra slice of pizza. Except it's not. Bandwidth is not a finite resource.
So you can actually read the little letter here that they sent out to people. Oh, it's so exciting. Wow. And basically they're just telling you, pay us more money. data caps. We're actually really lucky to not be data capped, but I feel like they're throttling me.
Yeah, they do. They definitely do.
Because I can't even
You get
Twitch
screwed
stream.
every time you try to stream. Yeah.
When you exceed 1 terabyte, your bandwidth will drop to about 50 megabit.
But it's not the calendar month.
Yeah.
It's because like I was at the end of March and the beginning of April, they were giving me 10 megabytes instead of whatever 28 that I'm getting, and then one day it was just okay. But then I couldn't Twitch stream.
Yeah.
Sounds
about right.
I wish they would just show me a meter or something.
Be careful what you wish for.
That's true. I'm sure that's coming. That was a
Friday.
marathon.
That was a marathon.
51 minutes. Wow, we got through that actually pretty quickly.
Where we were trying.
Friday's going to be one of those weird days where it's everything else. We haven't done robot, we haven't done social media, and we haven't done nonsense.
Exciting times. We'll see you Friday.
Woo. Bye. Hello, everybody. Today's Friday. It is April 16th. Today we're doing robot, social, and nonsense because we had such big categories earlier this week.
And congratulations to all of you and to us. We are all participants in the #1 social media.
YouTube is once again the most popular social media platform. So be sure to share our content with literally everybody you know. We'll take anybody at this point, please.
Take the big prize from Facebook. Now, Facebook does have a massive user base, and they do log in almost every day, most of them, but they're not growing like they used to. YouTube, on the other hand, continuing to grow.
Burp.
You can see there. YouTube did quite well during the 1920.
Although Instagram plus Facebook is more than YouTube.
Yeah. Well, this is just growth.
Uh,
In terms of numbers, I don't think it's all that close.
I think the youngins probably prefer YouTube and Instagram over like Facebook.
Yeah, but they're trying to get them off of it. I mean, they're probably not really trying because they know that, but they're pretending to try. They're trying something. I was very angry at this headline, and I still think that it will be used improperly, and it's a bad thing. But when you read the list of things that they're going to enforce this on, it actually doesn't seem as bad. I mean, this seems like some obvious things to do.
Twitch will ban users for severe misconduct that occurs away from its site.
So, yeah, I mean, you can see hate group membership. Well, that could be bad because who decides what's a hate group?
How are they on taking the camera into the bathroom?
I guess if you keep it pointed up, maybe it's okay. Credible threats of violence. I mean, that's just a crime, right?
Yeah.
Do you really even need to involve Twitch for that? And some other things, some other obvious, like racist type stuff. If you do it, say you tweet something, that could get you kicked off of Twitch.
Do you think RMS could start a Twitch channel?
Absolutely. Although he probably sucks at video games, don't you think?
Probably.
Or probably like one of those old guys who struggles to even walk and move in FPS.
Rather than turn the stream off, he would say, "I don't wish for you to be here anymore," and just go on with his life.
But some people worship that. He can make money. Twitter. So we talked about the big Facebook antitrust thing that's coming down, and the big bullet points there were every time there's a competitor, you research it, target it, and buy it. And that's anti-competitive, which has to be scary when Twitter sees that, when they're doing the exact same thing right now.
Twitter is said to have discussed a $4 billion buyout of Clubhouse, but then they looked at it and said, wait, this is just Mumble or Discord or just audio chat. We could just build this.
Vaporware. Yeah.
I don't know if they were necessarily the ones to pull out. It might have been Clubhouse.
Oh, it probably was.
But Clubhouse is looking to try and get investment capital to the tune of $4 billion. We talked about the Facebook data leak, and this is just more details about that because this is social media section. Probably should have done this one first. But yeah, they're saying that it was a leak, but it was so long ago, and it's not really a new thing, and we just don't really want to bother with it.
Facebook does not plan to notify 500 million users affected by data leak. Well, they didn't even leak it themselves. That's not us. We gave that data to somebody else, and they leaked it. That wasn't us.
And in fact, Facebook is not only not in the wrong here, but they're the protector. And if only we would have counted on them, this wouldn't be a problem. Whose fault is it?
Facebook says it's your fault that hackers got 500 million user phone numbers. So yeah, you should have taken better care of your phone number.
That they require when you register. Unfortunate. The other unfortunate thing that we constantly see are racist algorithms. They're running wild, and when will their racism be stopped? Well, apparently not anytime soon, because all of the universities in the world are using one.
Proctorio is using racist algorithms to detect faces. A student researcher has reverse engineered the controversial exam software and discovered that the tool infamous for failing is discovered a tool infamous for not recognizing non-white people.
There is one person in this photograph as considered by this AI. Now, what's funny about this is this person wrote some blog posts about this, and the company has retorted. There is what was the name of the OpenCV? So OpenCV is what he's basing all this on, because he found references to OpenCV in the code for Proctorio.
OpenCV is what I used on .dot, which explains its horrible racist tendencies.
So they said, no, we do use OpenCV, but not in this particular scenario. So, not sure. They also had a really crazy... a big part of their argument is facial detection versus facial recognition. Do you think it's any better?
No.
At black faces?
No. Because the data set is not good.
And speaking of racism, that is definitely one of the big things in the tech world and the world in general today. Intel has an interesting tool, and I think this is probably a good tool, but the engineers that built it didn't understand the nuances of public relations and the world we live in 2021. They gave us tools that are good, but should have been considered more. And I hate to say that.
Yeah.
Because this is fine, but it's not going to be a fine.
Vice reports that Intel's dystopian anti-harassment AI lets users opt in for quote-unquote some racism.
Now, here's the question, though. Let's say that we built something internally, right? And then we're sitting around and we're going to ship it. We're ready to show the client the final product and it's ready. Do you think that maybe, let's say I built this interface, right? Do you think that you'd be like, I'm not sure about this N-word toggle. The N-word toggle could be controversial because you literally have it. There it is. It's the N-word toggle. Also, racism and homophobia sliders.
That's what gets me, is it's so specific. Like, I know like Blizzard has a setting in like Overwatch where it says, do you want to hide out certain words?
All you need to know...
But it's just a single toggle, not like individual words like this.
All you need to know about how this software works is, like, Valve software already did this. It's the Meet the Pyro video. Go look up the Team Fortress Meet the Pyro video, and goggles on, goggles off. That's with this software.
But it's not that good.
It's not yet, but it will be.
It doesn't replace the racism with nice stuff. It simply just mutes it. So it can identify, and when you turn those sliders up, the reason they give you the sliders and the toggles is that this probably goes a little too far, and you might actually not be able to hear what your teammates are saying when they're peppering it with expletives. So you can kind of nudge that up or down.
We've been running so long this week, but there's just this whole aspect. I really think that we ought to have a spin-off series of the Level 1 News where we discuss some of these things, because we could just, it would be so exciting. Like, in the 1960s, Uhura kissing Kirk was like a big deal, and like that was like a social thing, and looking back it's like, wow, that's really groundbreaking. Is modern science fiction going to be like, the alien race puts on their helmet and anything that might trigger them is just automatically filtered out by the AI, and they're more functional and better somehow? Because I feel like that being exposed to the shock of Uhura kissing Kirk was ultimately good for. But this is kind of the opposite.
I'm sure you know this, and we might have even talked about this on in this venue before. But according to Takei, The script was Spock.
Oh yeah.
And when they were like, one of the producers on the set was like, this is going to be a historic moment. And Shatner was like, huh? And he pulled Roddenberry aside, and they came back in and they were like, all right, Kirk is going to do the kiss. It's going to be Kirk. And he's going to go down in history. Now, sometimes...
But I mean, I'm not the only one that sees the relationship there. Like, the thing that Intel's doing doesn't seem a lot different than what they were doing on TV then, but kind of maybe the opposite.
But it makes more sense in this context because it's kids, mostly, right? Well, maybe not mostly, but a lot of them. And
it's not a media thing either. It's not like you're seeing it on TV or anything.
It's not like you're sitting at home looking at the TV like, no, you're trying to participate in a game. But you might be hearing terrible things.
What if the people in the 1960s had the option to turn off interracial kissing? It's like, I don't want to see that.
But then back in those days, it would just be a big black bar. Yeah, I don't know. I understand it, but I also don't think I think shielding children from that is going to have a negative effect. They need to understand how bad the world is, not pretend like it's not. Because that's just they're going to be taken advantage of later in life.
I mean, definitely, if you were a kid watching the adults react to people reacting to the on-screen interracial kiss, you definitely learned a lot there. I bet there was at least one, probably more than one, smashed TV back in the Uhura day, right? Yeah. It's like, I've been betrayed. My favorite science fiction has been, that's a line too far.
Not in this house.
And then you look back and it's just like, wow, those people were messed up. Are we going to look back and it's like, oh, we didn't know any better. We were so stupid back then.
They were messed up and they all had 15 kids apiece. And they're all still out there doing that. But racist AI, sometimes like there's racist AI that's just racist because you fed it bad data, and that's kind of all of them, I guess. It's racist because we're racist. And there's racist AI that is designed to be racist. And you might say, well, who would do that? And actually the answer is no one, which is even sadder.
Government audit of AI with ties to white supremacy finds no AI. So yeah, the government did an audit of this company. They made all these claims. When they looked at it, it was like,
you're leaving out very important parts of the story. This guy, do you remember his name?
No.
Domlin Patton.
Banjo CEO. Remember Banjo? We've covered Banjo before.
So he created this Banjo system, and then it was later revealed through his social media, like some actual really serious racist white supremacist stuff. Like he was involved in groups. This was actually a thing he was in. It wasn't the cancel culture. No, he really was part of this stuff, or at least according to VentureBeat. Yeah. And then when they found that out, they were like, we've got to review this AI. We've got to find out if this AI really is racist. And then there is no AI. It was all fake.
Yeah.
This was the Theranos of the AI world. And they paid what, like $120 million the government paid?
Yeah. It didn't exist yet.
Didn't do anything.
Rip.
Supposed to be, they touted it as like it was supposed to be a live, it looked at live footage and could tell when certain things were happening. The one they point out here, child abduction. There was no AI. Amazing the world we live in. But when it comes to Mr. Wiggers, of course, when it comes to voice chat, Discord is just really letting us down.
Yeah,
we're having a bad time with Discord, and maybe in the age of all this internet congestion, it's not the bandwidth that we need to count on to save us, but rather the codec.
Google launches Lyra codec in beta to reduce voice call bandwidth usage. It's an expertly trained AI. It's the new amazing thing. I wonder if the people that left the AI division had anything to do with it.
What if all this gets mixed up and then the people that left the AI division because of, like, there's some racism stuff mixed in there, right?
Yeah.
Is then used for a racist voice algorithm.
I thought you were going in a different direction where it's like if you had a certain accent or your voice sounded a certain way, it would literally be translated into just clicks and whistles.
I'm sure that this does struggle with some of that. So what it does is it chops up the data stream, the voice stuff, into tiny, tiny, tiny segments, and then it uses machine learning to reassemble them on the other side. So it's not a constant stream of your voice. It's being rebuilt. How long until they can just change it to whatever they want it to be? Like they learn your voice for 10 minutes and then start changing what you were
The
saying.
deep fake of audio?
And then,
exactly.
and then deep fake it with a video.
Soon.
Yeah.
But
TM.
here's the thing about it. 3 kilobytes per second.
That's pretty good.
It's incredible. I imagine that's per participant, but still. So they say if we get another like Texas ice storm where all the lines are busy, this could kick in and save us.
Meanwhile, at the NSA, they were like, we're going to save so much bandwidth.
They call us like, not for any reason, but do you have a storage API for this?
Just curious.
We talked about the Uber changing how it works, taking away the driver's ability to see fares and to see destinations and to get decent pricing. And perhaps they knew about this beforehand, and that's why they are preemptively doing that. Because when you give the drivers too much information, they might beat your terrible system that's built to take their money.
DoorDash drivers game algorithm to increase pay. The Decline Now movement is testing whether workers can use a company's software against it. So basically, the drivers in an area got together and they're like, "Okay, don't take the cheap ones because then we'll all suffer."
Yeah, somehow if you deny the cheap ones, everybody makes more money, except DoorDash. And then I guess you're also punishing people who are not tipping because they never get their order filled. It's interesting. Could go terribly far in the other direction as well, though. And that would probably just kill DoorDash. I suppose we'll see. Honestly, though, we won't see because DoorDash will have this fixed in a week, don't you think?
Yeah, they'll shut this down.
Your GPS coordinates are very close to driver, some other GPS coordinates. You've both been blacklisted.
Or you've taken 2 20% tip orders today. You must now take 1 5% tip order to regain the balance in your account. You can totally see that. I tried to find an update. Has it flown yet? Do you know?
I don't know.
I don't think it has. I think they're
As of this
waiting.
recording.
This was the 5th, so I think they're still waiting on something. But we have hit another milestone with our fabulous Mars copter.
NASA's Mars helicopter survived its first cold night on Mars on its own because it was like almost minus 100 C, which is pretty darn cold. That's really hard on electronics, batteries, and that kind of thing. Well, it survived.
It was its first night out of its womb. That it was
Protective
in
cocoon shell.
under the other robot. So it's got its battery down there. Now, interesting thing about this little helicopter, no instrumentation of any kind. It's not taking any samples. It's not looking around anything. All it wants to do is, can I fly?
Oh, it has a camera.
Oh, does it? Oh, that's right, because they're going to send back a picture. I forgot about that one. Yeah, but I mean, these days, the cameras are so tiny.
There's like 17 in this room alone.
South Korea, they are often at the forefront of different adopting technology. I think they are a community that adopts technology much more rapidly than some other countries, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
They definitely, I mean, they got the great internet, plus e-sports and stuff like that. They certainly were the first at that and the best.
Yeah.
And but you can still alienate them when you do something very, very stupid with AI.
South Korean chatbot shows just how sloppy tech companies can be with user data. This is in Slate.
So the problem here, this was like a love bot, but you would take your messenger. So you've been texting with some suitor that you want to perhaps have a romantic relationship with. This AI can take that string of messages and score it based on how interested it thinks that other party is to you. It's based on response time, the length of the messages, and the language. But here's the tricky part. They weren't just scoring you, they were training the AI with your messages. And because of that, as you can imagine, young lovers texting each other, it caused the AI to get a little bit racy sometimes when you were just talking to it. And of course, a little bit of racism and sexism thrown in there too. No, they didn't disclose they were doing that. People aren't too happy about it because, as you can imagine, again, texting between lovers, some intimate details. Did you listen to this?
One of the songs was taken down.
Really?
Yeah, it was a YouTube can't play this, it doesn't work
I
thing.
listened to the first one. I thought it sounded pretty similar, actually. It was not a good Nirvana song, but I might have been convinced that it is one.
Lost Tapes of the 27 Club used Google AI to quote-unquote write a new Nirvana song. And then a Nirvana tribute band performed it?
No, just the voice.
Just the voice.
The AI did all the arrangement. I think it wrote the lyrics too,
Yeah,
but it counted on that guy
to actually sing.
to sing it. You know what it made me think of when I was listening to it? I was thinking I should listen to real Nirvana. This reminds me that I like real Nirvana.
We should
it says it was a singer from a Nirvana tribute band, so it wasn't.
He sounds similar.
We should use this to create our own interesting and compelling music, since that's something that we've lacked for our channel for a long time.
Oh yeah. What would we feed it?
Video
Weird
game
Al
themes.
songs.
We should feed it only your and Krista's musical choices and see what kind of abortion comes out the other end of that. Some kind of barely intelligible parody song about Middle Earth.
That's later in the nonsense section when we cover the Lord of the Rings in Russian.
And moving on to more robot news, we do know that, oddly enough, I guess it's not oddly enough, but somewhat surprising to me at least, is when we started putting robots out there with the general population, a non-trivial amount of people just started attacking them. And it seems like children are not immune to that. But these robot designers, they said, you give us lemons, we're making lemonade.
Children beating up a robot inspires new escape maneuver system. So this is like one of those mall patrol robots, and they've modified the AI. So if it's like, oh, there's a bunch of kids with no adult around, we should avoid that.
So it looks at figures lower than 4 foot 1 inch, I think it was, in a group. If it sees a group of small people, it just turns around and goes the other direction. And it tries to identify someone over that height, as if it's like, run away from the children to an adult and maybe the adult will save you. Which is hilarious. Because they
I love
studied
the clip of all the kids, they chain their arms up so it can't get out.
So this robot would walk up to the kids and it would say, can I please pass? And the kids obviously said no and then started to attack it. Because that's what you do when a robot politely asks you a question.
Also, I think my cam froze. Hang on.
Uh-oh.
Oh, it's trying. Oh, I'm back. I restarted it.
I don't
It's
know
fine.
if we... How long was that?
Did it work for you?
It seems okay now.
Just for like a minute, I think.
Oh, nope.
No. You're still frozen.
Oh, it's fine on my end.
Oh, is it
Moving
because
on.
Sorry.
It's because I downsized you. Hang on. Yeah, you're good.
All right, cool.
Don't downsize. Drag off the screen. Now we've had a terrible mishap.
It's fine.
Maybe a little editing on this episode. Elon Musk, he's got all these crazy businesses, and maybe the craziest is the one where they're just implanting stuff in your brain to interface with electronics. I mean, it sounds like a dream, but I don't think we're ready for it yet. And the man he co-founded that company with definitely has some interesting ideas.
Elon Musk partner says that he could build the real Jurassic Park with genetically engineered dinosaurs. Oh, that's not a good idea.
What about all those movies and the books makes you think, yeah, that'd be a good idea?
Well, they made a lot of money before it went bad, right?
They spared no expense.
This is, of course, one of Wendell's things that drives him crazy, and he's right about it. A story that makes noise
Please stop it.
A story based 100% on a single tweet.
On a tweet.
Yeah.
Moving right along.
No details. He didn't tell us how he was going to do that. He just tweeted.
Or how those technologies even intersect between like genetic engineering and implanting a chip in your head.
I don't know that he was going to use the Neuralink stuff to make the dinosaurs.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, I think he's just
throwing
yeah.
shit out there, yeah.
He's getting headlines, and he got them.
Wow.
And we read them. Another problem that SpaceX has, and this is certainly not a new problem, but if you're the victim of it, it's got to be unsettling, right?
Yep. Debris from SpaceX rocket launch has fallen on a farm in central Washington. And there it is. Some sort of like pressurized tube thing.
It's part of the staging thing. It's part of one of the things that explodes when it sheds the booster. Normally that would burn up in the atmosphere, but they had some problems on that last launch. So made it all the way down to Earth.
And somebody's farm who declined to be interviewed and whatever.
I like that when they made that statement about it, they were like, please, treasure hunters, don't, because I guess treasure hunters would just descend on the property like locusts.
Elon Musk touched this part of the rocket personally. I don't think so.
What do you think it would sell for if they could get it and sell it?
Thousands of dollars.
Thousands or tens of thousands?
Oh, you turned it into an NFT first, and then...
It depends on the buyer. Yeah, I bet you could find a buyer for something like that.
Do you sell the NFT and the piece to the same person or different people?
Oh, I think you turned it into an NFT, and then you shred it into some kind of confetti, and then you sell it as an NFT.
Why not do individual chunks? Again, the indulgences. The NFT indulgence industry could be massive. I mean, who's the hot young star? Is Taylor Swift still hot? Taylor Swift walks off stage, peels off her dress. They film slicing it up into ribbons, and they NFT each ribbon.
It'd probably be $1 million per slice plus, which is disturbing.
It's still got her sweat all over it.
Yeah, that's what's part of what's driving the price up so high.
This was an exciting project, but I can't help but think, like,
there are other ways.
Yeah.
Why would you go to this expense just to rebuild? How much more did you spend just to make it work after spending that much on it?
Intel MacBook Pro owner adds water cooling to silence the noisy fans and boost performance. So it's a cold plate that the laptop sits on because it's not one of the M1 Macs. That's the joke.
But he did put thermal padding down there and pulled off a bunch of stuff off the bottom so it's perfectly flat. And he claims the reason he did this is because people were complaining during Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
It was so loud. This is, I suppose, a sad day. Krista, aren't you a big fan of this?
Not a huge fan, but I mean, there are some funny things on there, like how is Babby formed?
But it's probably not funny enough for them to justify keeping the servers running.
No.
The cost that it's costing them every day to keep this alive, because I don't think anybody uses it for real.
Yahoo Answers, a repository for stupid questions, is shutting down, in case you didn't get the memo.
What will we do now when we need answers?
Go to archive.org and look up Yahoo Answers.
But what if I need to ask a question that's never been asked?
There's also a link at the bottom of this. I think I have this on a playlist somewhere. Curse of the Ouija board. It's just tons of Yahoo questions about Ouija boards, but it's always spelled wrong.
Oh, yeah, I saw the Luigi board.
It's hilarious, yeah.
I like how terrified people are of those. People have real fear about those things. Well, Chris, obviously, have you seen
I
this
haven't
gem?
watched any clips of it. I've seen lots of like screen caps, but I haven't watched it yet.
I believe it is available in its entirety on YouTube. Is that a weekend plan?
No, maybe I'll just spend some time with the books based on the screen caps.
How can you not watch this? Come on. Headline.
Soviet TV version of Lord of the Rings rediscovered after 30 years. Russian language film posted on YouTube delights fans.
I watched it about 10 minutes of the first half, and it is a delightfully mesmerizing train wreck.
Did you do the full first 10 minutes or did you skip around?
No, I did the full first 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Is it better or worse than the Rankin Bass cartoon?
I think it's better than the Rankin Bass cartoon, but it's maybe not as good as the reimagined Leonard Nimoy version from the 70s.
Aren't the hobbits a little too small in this screenshot?
Yeah. In the first 10 minutes, there's not really like a ton of stuff that happens, but yeah, it doesn't have the best production value.
They tried. Now, is this just the Fellowship, or do they do the whole?
Oh.
Krista, we need answers about this. You
I
got to
think
watch
it was
that.
just the Fellowship, but I'm not sure.
This is just a fantastic headline. I mean, how can you not read this story when you see this?
Yeah.
Up to 5 monkeys on the loose in Ohio, last seen in cemetery. This is Cincinnati. Police in Cincinnati are on the lookout for monkeys.
They could come here.
They were probably some monkeys that belong to a private owner, because apparently that's a thing.
You immediately think Cincinnati Zoo, right?
Yeah, no.
Because there's a zoo there. No, these are just private monkeys. What happens in your life that you say to yourself, all right, I got to let these monkeys go?
Pandemic.
You went through a whole year of lockdown smelling those stinky monkeys, but now you got to get rid of them?
You're like, yeah, I'm done with this now.
Also, good on them for sticking together. I guess what choice do they have, though, right?
It reminds me of that scene, is it Jumanji, where the monkeys are running through like the town and the cemetery? Maybe someone's playing Jumanji in Cincinnati right now.
What country was it where they had a huge problem with that during the pandemic? Because no one was feeding them.
Oh yeah, the tourists weren't there.
Was it
I
like
don't remember.
Sri Lanka or
Yeah,
something like that?
Tibet maybe?
Yeah, I think that was it, actually. I don't like monkeys. They freak me out. If you are if you're a fan of games like the simulator games, where you just set up 2 battles and you just watch them fight, but there's really no gameplay, I don't understand those. But people love them. Here's one that you can play and you might be able to make money at.
Microsoft releases a cyber attack simulator. Shall we play a game? This is good for testing your stuff.
So you can see here, you plan all the various little nodes of your network and your system, and you define the software that goes into them, and it considers all the various vulnerabilities that it might be able to use to attack your system. Couldn't someone adapt this to just be pure
hideously evil
aggression, like actually hacking systems? It seems like they're kind of messing around with a weapon that maybe shouldn't be built here.
There's a bunch of Linux distros that are basically already that, so nah.
Yeah, but this has a GUI. I've never heard of Crime Door. Have you heard of them before?
Nope.
It's an interesting idea. The idea behind Crime Door is it's augmented reality. Do you think you have to go to the place where it happened? Probably not. But you go and you witness famous crime scenes. So you could walk through the streets of London and find a young prostitute that Jack the Ripper had murdered.
This is so dark already, and then they made it darker.
And they
canceled it.
Yeah, but they thought about it. It came up in a board meeting.
Crime Door cancels plans for an AR experience of George Floyd's final moments. That seems a little distasteful.
Yeah, let's not do that.
After I watched the George Floyd video, and I may have changed my mind after watching the whole video about who was responsible for what, but I don't want to see it again.
Yeah.
I mean,
I heard so many bad things about it. I was like, I'm not seeking that out.
It is a man crying for his mother as he suffocates.
It's distressing, and it's weird that someone was like, how can we monetize this in a video game?
Yeah, it's probably not something we should be. Also, I guess the recreation could be really good, though, because they had 5 or 6 cameras running on that thing the whole time. That's the other insane thing about it.
That's the other takeaway is it's like anytime you're in public in an American city, how many cameras are on you?
Now, Wendell, you are Team Moderna.
Yep.
You've already locked in. I have not chosen yet, but I'm leaning toward Pfizer. Krista, what team do you think you'll be on?
There's part of me that wants to do the Johnson & Johnson, but then I heard some stuff was taken down recently, so I'm not sure.
You will be alienated on TikTok if you do that, Krista, because as this article points out, the Johnson & Johnson is what they describe as the Walmart of the vaccines. It's for poor people.
The faded glory of vaccines.
Oh my gosh.
But whichever one you choose, you will be joining a faction. So be prepared for that. Be prepared to rep your vaccine.
NBC News reports Team Pfizer, Moderna, or Johnson. Vaccine rivalries are taking over TikTok. Only hot people get Pfizer.
Yeah, Krista, the hot girls are definitely doing Pfizer, so I don't know if that
Hot girl summer,
influences
you gotta
you.
be on Pfizer.
Yeah. So they have this chick, I don't know who she is. I drunk your milkshake. Apparently she's super popular, and she is one who is repping Pfizer. Pfizer gang.
I wonder if they're paying for that.
If they're not, they should start.
I want to be in that board meeting when the marketing people roll in and they're like, all right, this is going to sound a little out there, but we need to do some influencer funding. Okay, well, we're in for that. What are we doing here? It's like, let me show you. And then they show them that, and it's just like, do we need money for this?
I see a $20 million line item here, and I don't understand what we're buying with that. Oh, we're giving the Paul brothers our vaccine.
They should get different ones though, so they can do YouTube videos like, dissing each other, diss tracks.
And they can each talk about the side effects and like who's got it worse, who's doing better. That's a lot of content right there. Oh, it's shocking. With 2 stories this week about the Mustang Mach-E, which I will reiterate is a god-awful, ugly piece of machinery. What were they thinking? Jesus.
Why did they call it Mustang? This is not a Mustang.
Yeah.
It's worse than the Mustang that they had in that awful Knight Rider reboot.
It's a Mustang mommy car. And it's, I don't know. But anyway, people seem to like it. Actually, it's getting a lot of glowing reviews, which is angering you-know-who.
Ford Mustang Mach-E owner praises car and receives death threats from Tesla fans. As someone who's experienced our own YouTube comments, that sounds about right.
But as they point out, this guy also has a Tesla and has praised it on the same Twitter feed where he's getting most of the hate.
Well, he's also complained about it on the same Twitter feed where he's getting hate.
But he said overall he liked it. However, he liked the Mustang a little bit more, and that was not acceptable.
Not acceptable.
No.
So
Imagine being such a corporate shill that you send someone a death threat because they don't like the same product as you.
Well, that happens every day. There's people
Blows my mind.
in the comments who feel that way about NVIDIA and AMD and Intel.
But
There might be
why?
somebody sitting at this desk who feels that way about AMD. That's not true. Wendell's pragmatic enough to use Intel. He just doesn't tell anybody about it. It's his little secret.
It's a dirty secret.
When he needs it, he uses it.
I want things that go fast and don't cost a lot of money.
Now, Wendell, they did not provide a picture here, and I felt like that was a problem.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to
Yeah.
see. Now, do you think it was the
Batleth?
the cling, or was it all like rifles and phasers and stuff?
It's untelling. I mean, it's probably a combination.
Thinking back, I haven't watched all of the newer shows, but on Next Generation, and certainly the original series, the guns didn't look all that gun-like.
Yeah.
Did they change that later on? I think like some of the aliens had more gun-like guns.
Yeah, mostly it was, things might resemble a pistol.
But as someone in law enforcement who should have some training in identifying firearms, do you think you'd ever be fooled?
No.
I don't think so either.
Fort Lauderdale police mistook quote-unquote Star Trek memorabilia for weapons. These 2 guys who were older received
60s.
quite a beating. And the best excuse they could come up with was Star Trek memorabilia, which probably means that it wasn't even that. They were probably just looking for anything.
The thing about it is, you might be thinking, oh, did somebody make a call? Is this like a red flag type of deal? No. Someone keyed this guy's car. He called the cops. The cops showed up and said, this is less than $1,000. Don't waste our time next time. And he got angry about that and probably said some things that he shouldn't have. Or he should have had every right to, but because of the police state that we live in, he was then savagely beaten for those remarks. And his friend came to try to rescue him and received his own savage beating. This cop had 78 complaints of violence against him.
Probably don't need to live in Fort Lauderdale anymore.
Oh, it's a terrible place, Florida.
Florida's kind of a rough state in general.
But obviously they needed some kind of excuse for why they savagely beat these 2 older men, and the one they came up with was Star Trek weapons. Do the Star Trek guns even have triggers? Isn't the phaser like a thumb operation?
On Next Gen, yeah. The The original, like Star Trek, the original series style phaser was trigger driven.
But it was on one of those ray gun type looking things, right?
Yeah, it definitely looked like a ray gun.
Didn't look like anything. Did you see
Phaser rifles are trigger driven as well.
some genius? They have all these guns that you can take a Glock lower and just mount it into a much larger system and run, like, kind of like a little mini carbine or something. Somebody got a blue polymer Glock lower and 3D printed a Nerf, but it's a fully operational 9mm Glock.
Oh, that's going to get somebody murdered.
Yeah, it got seized, and Biden's going to have a field day with that. I bet, much like we can't get flavored cigarettes, we're not going to be able to get colored guns. It's got to be evil and black, and I don't mean that in terms of...
That's okay. Someone's already clipped it.
Yeah.
And our final story, this was a big one, and I don't understand what these celebrities think. How many times has this played out at this point? 'Cause the Streisand bit was the big one.
I think this is a reverse Streisand.
It
Yeah,
did,
I think she's using it to get her name out.
but did you notice BBC News didn't have the balls to put the picture in the article?
They did not.
I looked up the photo because it was bothering me. I needed to know.
I haven't seen it yet. What was your opinion on it?
She looks fine. I don't.
Well, yeah, of course she looks fine. She's
I
a very
posted a
attractive
picture.
woman.
That's going to be now in our chat history, but
Oh, okay. Let me go
yeah,
over here. And
she
take a
looks
look at it.
fine. Like, I don't understand, but I mean, she doesn't look like she's been edited to hell and back. But we haven't read the headline.
That waist is nothing like the stuff she normally puts out, right?
Yeah, but she's very pretty. I don't understand it.
She's got
Anyway,
the
this
Borat
is
thing
about
going
Khloe
on.
Kardashian tries to get an unfiltered photo removed from literally everywhere on the internet, and it's not going well.
That is a slightly above average attractiveness woman, and what she needs is to be one of the most attractive women in the world for her brand to succeed. So that's the problem.
Khloe Kardashian tries to get unfiltered photo removed from social media. The lawyers are having a field day.
I mean, good luck.
It's definitely a reverse Streisand.
Yeah, I think she's like, oh, this will just get me in the news more.
Well, some people did praise her. There's that whole movement of like no makeup, real women's bodies, that type of thing. So I think it had some good reaction at first.
Yeah.
And then they did this.
I mean, what she's showing there definitely takes a lot of work and maintenance.
Yeah, but you can also achieve it with filters.
Well, yeah,
You
and if
can-
you've seen any of their photos, usually it's like they're just airbrushed out of existence.
Did you guys also see? Did we talk about this last week? Kim Kardashian now a billionaire.
That's
Not going to be fun for her pending divorce when they try to split those assets.
it's not especially surprising, but
I thought one of the younger girls was richer than her. I guess maybe not anymore.
I don't know.
no idea.
It's not a world I understand.
Anyway, the TLDR there is that she looks fine. This is a publicity stunt, and we fell for it. But we're here at the end.
You made it through another week. Thank you.
She does look fine, but she doesn't look better than lots of other girls out there, and they all probably have more personality than she does, and yet she's worshipped. And
I don't know.
her father kept a murderer out of prison. Gotta remember that.
Not the best track record, no. See you next week.
Krista, give us a
That's it.
an unflattering bikini goodbye.